go through. I mean, the one,
There's so much stuff around here.
School, but on the other side
on
of
the
the
north
school.
side? Oh. Anyway, I probably should take a seat.
Go ahead and start.
I thought you had your pink tie on too, Scott.
Okay.
I thought you had your pink tie on.
I thought about it, but no ties until I have to.
Are we good? You good?
Like you said,
All right.
I'll wear a jacket.
Welcome to our council meeting for tonight, August 19th, 2020. We will begin with an invocation by Dr. Samha from the Islamic Center, and then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Jason Norris.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. All praise are due to Allah for your generous grace which we have been blessed with. O Allah, make us use your grace with your satisfaction. O Allah, give us the strength and the honesty in the performance of our duties. O Allah, bless us in every project and every period and every effort we make, and write us your satisfaction on all that we accomplished and achieved. O Allah, verily I ask you for good on this day, and your help, and your light, and your blessing. O Allah, there is no ease except in that which you have made easy. O Allah, give us of every work we do, and the way we do it, guidance from you, happiness and a pleasure for us and everyone in our community. O Allah, we ask your blessing when we leave this place. Bless us and our families and home. Amen.
Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will now move on to our agenda order approval, and this will be for both agendas.
Mayor, I'm just wondering on the women's suffrage resolution, are we okay with it being towards the end of the meeting, or I don't know if it's just the resolution or if there's some other thing involved. I'm just.
No, it's just that, and it's under the public comment portion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
On my packet, it was 14A.
Yeah, it was at the very end in the packet.
Correct.
But really, it's at the very beginning of the meeting.
All right, my apologies. I would make a motion to approve the agenda order for both meetings.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll go to council business.
2 items, Mayor.
Yes.
One, once again, a reminder that grant funds are available for relief for our businesses in Iron County. Those applications are coming in with a greater frequency, and we're spending some of that money, but we would really like to get that money deployed to help restore and relieve businesses that have been so hammered by COVID-19. So please go to the Iron County website and apply, and we'll see if we can't get you some funds. The other thing, it may be so subtle that you didn't notice, but it's somebody's birthday today.
So subtle.
And I think we ought to sing happy birthday to the mayor. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Miley. Happy birthday to you.
And many more.
I might say there are treats out there also provided by the mayor's family, if those would like to have some, either, we just say we don't want to make too much noise with the cookies during the meeting, but please feel free, if you leave the meeting, you're welcome to get some. We just want everybody to celebrate the mayor's special day. It is this very day, so.
And if things get too intense during the meeting,
We
comic
can always put our
relief
crowns on.
is at each of our places. Okay.
Mayor, I have one item. It was brought to my attention that the skate park over by, what is that, 1045 North and Coal Creek roughly, is still closed. It's been about 3 weeks. What is the status on that? We're just about out of summertime.
Wade, Orem Parks Division Head. So it is under, we have the panels and they are being replaced as quickly as possible. It is a slow process. Each panel contains 60 to 80 self-tapping screws that go into the metal. And a lot of times, because it's out in the element, they just don't drill out, they shear off. So then it's grinding them off, re-drilling the hole, and everything. So it's a labor-intensive process. Sometimes it takes 2 guys 4 to 6 hours just to do one panel. So they
How many
have
panels are we talking about, Wade?
15 is what we ordered. So, and we probably should, we're in the process, so we'll get more for next year
Right.
as well. There, it's a labor-intensive process.
Is it something that could be done at a different time of year? If we, I mean, I realize it can't be in the middle of a snowstorm or something, but I'm just wondering, because it is a prime time with kids all out of schools, and of course,
So
they've been
the
out of schools
reason,
for months, so.
the reason it got shut down was for safety concerns.
Yeah.
We had a few panels that we knew were getting close, and so we ordered them. Panels are made to order. They're not sitting on a shelf, and so that's a 6 to 8 week process. And 2 to 3 weeks into that, we got some, we had some big holes in the panels where it actually went through the sub paneling. So that's when we closed it down for safety factors. And now it's just trying to get it back open. We have 4 or 5 guys working on it until they can't stand the heat anymore. Getting on those panels, it's,
Hot.
yeah, it's probably 110 when you're on top of those black panels. So they're going as fast as they can. So hopefully it will go quickly. They've done some of the harder ones already, but we'll go until they're all gone and open it back up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Anything else? I just wanted to say, Mayor, that I wanted to congratulate both our police department and our fire department for their ongoing EVO training and some of the interesting videos that have come out of the driving training. But I think it's terrific that our departments continue to try and improve their skills for the safety of our citizens. So I just want to congratulate them for that ongoing training.
What is EVO?
I have no idea what it stands for. I'm sorry?
Emergency vehicle
Emergency
operation.
vehicle operation.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments? One that we need to, hold this up, that we need to discuss is our action meeting, which would typically be held next week. We need to cancel because there won't be a quorum, and so the first meeting in September, I think it's September 2nd, we will do an action and a work meeting that night. So everything on this agenda will be voted on that first meeting in September.
If we would, excuse me, if we would have a quorum with me coming, I can come if needed. So I know we've got a lot of things, probably some of them waiting, so.
3.
Yeah, we need 3.
Yeah, I mean,
So we would need 3 to have a quorum.
So
I won't be here.
you won't be here either? Okay, that's what I wasn't aware of, and Ron won't.
and Ron won't.
If we
But-
want to go ahead and go forward, I can plan on coming. I
What
can
would you rather
change,
do?
I can adjust plans, so.
It's up to the council.
Well, it's up to, I guess, the 3 of
What would happen if, I mean, I know in the event of a tie, the mayor pro tem votes, correct?
Correct.
Because there'll only be 3 of you here, and one of them will have to serve as the mayor pro tem, as the mayor will be out of town. And if it's a 1-to-1 vote, then somebody's got to tip that scale.
That's correct. That's how it would
Yeah,
work.
that's,
So it would be the 3 of us?
yes. So would you like to have a meeting, or would you like to?
I don't know, there's a lot of stuff on here that's pretty serious. I think, I would prefer that we would wait. I don't know what kind of
Right.
things it causes, but there's a lot of important stuff here that
There is.
I think needs full deliberation for the more voices, but that's only my thoughts. I don't want to certainly sway
What
it.
we are considering can wait until the first week in
Yeah.
September.
Yeah, I think we ought to.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
So we will have our first meeting, or the action meeting for this agenda on September 2nd, I think. Yes, it is the 2nd, and we'll have a work meeting that same night. Okay, we'll move to staff comments. There are any? No. Okay, we'll move to our public agenda with public comments, and we'll begin with our Better Days 2020 proclamation. And so here's the proclamation. Whereas the nation is celebrating the 100th anniversary of the successful passing of the 19th Amendment, which extended the voting rights to women citizens throughout the United States, and the 55th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which protected voting rights for people of color. And whereas Utah was the place where the first vote under women's suffrage laws was cast and counted, and will be celebrating the 150th anniversary of this historic first vote. And whereas Utah women voted for 17 years before federal legislation revoked their suffrage, after which they organized and worked together to regain voting rights in Utah state constitution. And whereas Utah's heritage cities celebrate Utah's women as the first to vote under equal suffrage laws, and to honor Utah suffrage who advanced the rights of women and promoted the democratic values at the core of the United States. And whereas Utah heritage cities recognize the women who continue to work to secure suffrage and citizenship rights for women and break down barriers to their political participation, and acknowledge the legacy of strong, influential trailblazers who serve in their families and communities by encouraging women to continue to participate in civic life. Now therefore, let it be resolved that I, Miley L. Wilson Edwards, Mayor of Cedar City, Utah, on behalf of the City Council and all the citizens of Cedar City, do hereby declare that Cedar City be designated a Utah Heritage City during the year 2020. And so tonight we do want to recognize this important anniversary, not only for our country, but also for our state. And you all have buttons.
Yeah.
And it's very fitting that our council chamber is pink and everything to celebrate this historic night. It's nothing to do with anything other than that. All right. And we will now open it up for other public comments. If you would like to address the council, just make sure you keep your comments brief. If it's on a specific agenda item, I'd ask that you wait till we get to that agenda item. But also please state your name so we have that for the record. As you know, this whole drill, so.
Laura Henderson, Cedar City resident. I do have comments, but related to an item on the agenda, but I will wait until that one comes up. It was my understanding, and a couple of other individuals' understanding, that we were going to talk about the SHD zone tonight, but I understand that that had been pulled. And I've talked to a couple of council people who explained that that had to, apparently some of the revisions had to go before the Builders Association, which apparently was supposed to go to the Builders Association before it went to the Planning Commission. And so I'm requesting on behalf of some of the other residents who are concerned about the SHD zone revision, that after the revisions go to the Builders Association and they have a chance to kind of hash it out amongst themselves, look at codes and et cetera, that they would be invited to the city council to, in a public forum, to give statements on what their recommendations are. Because as we know, if a citizen has to come before the council, we need to be of record and give our comments. So I would ask that the Home Builders Association reps be invited to do that as well, so we understand what it is that they are concerned with in terms of the SHD revisions. Thank you.
All right. Duly noted. Got a home builder here, so.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Faun. I'm here to represent Southern Utah Yeti, local hockey ice rink group. I just wanted to come before the council and the mayor this evening. I've been in contact with Councilman Isom and Councilman Phillips in working towards continuing ice rink here in Cedar. And we've put a lot of time into this and a lot of effort. Our efforts this year kind of hinged on getting a contract as well with Staley Rec Organization to be able to use their equipment. Unfortunately, in the last 3 meetings we've had with them, they've decided that they don't think their equipment would hold up to multiple moves, and they still plan to proceed with something within the next 2 years. So that has shut us down on using that equipment. We have looked at lots of grants. We've looked for used equipment. We can't really find any used equipment out there right now. Everybody's kind of holding tight with what they have. A new system and all the amenities that we would need to get it up and running this year would be on the low end of about $600,000. So, and we've looked at grants. We've spoken to different people that have offered before in the past to be generous donors. And with the state of society and our economy right now, a lot of grants have been pulled from a lot of large names. And a lot of people are very hesitant to put money out there because they are worried. So unfortunately, this year, going through with a plan with Cedar City is not going to happen for us. To be completely transparent, us as a board, we know that regardless of who builds a rink in the future, if it's in the future and everything falls flat now, it is going to be next to impossible to keep our organization going, to keep the programs going for the kids, and that just guts me. So we have brainstormed and come up with some ideas. We are going to try for a natural freeze this year and freeze a rink size area to be able to continue the programs this year, as well as continue fundraising, searching for grants and searching for funding to be able to continue to hopefully work with the city and the council if it is still open for next season. That should give us a full year to kind of get things in motion. Hopefully everything gets better in our society to where it's a more feasible plan for us to be able to do that. Places that we were reaching out to, because it's going to be very hard to find a shaded place with parking that's large enough down here in the valley that we can do a natural freeze. I won't do that to Brent Hunter again. That was something else. And just the conditions out there aren't something with the base that we have now that it can hold up to. So we are reaching out to the county and possibly looking at Woods Ranch to use, because they've got facilities, they've got parking, they've got bathrooms. It's a little bit further drive. We've reached out to Duck Creek Village, and we are looking to reach out to the city of Bryan Head to see about using their pond. We have found a cheap Zamboni. We have local people who are willing to donate equipment for snow removal and things like that, and we will be responsible for upkeep and setting up, tearing down, and organizing everything once again. It's going to be a lot of work, but again, I can't, in good conscience, just step back and not do anything when I know that, I mean, not just the 150 kids that were in the hockey program and the 180 that were in the Learn to Skate program, but all of the kids that have made this rink their home in the past years. They deserve somewhere to be. It's not their fault that things fell apart, and they have put their lives into it as much as we have, so they deserve to have somewhere. So those are our plans currently, and we just hope that as we get things together and continue to build momentum, that there will still be a home in Cedar City for us as we look to progress into a future program. And again, we want to thank you guys for everything. The city has made it possible, the cooperation with the mayor, city staff, city council. I can't even believe, I mean, it's sad that we don't have it, but what we have built, and knowing that there are still people back there supporting us to push forward, even if it is a seasonal rink, temporary, whatever we've got to do, it's because we were able to work together and make such a beautiful, beautiful thing happen, and I don't want to see that die, and I'm going to continue to push forward with that. So, are there any questions or anything that I can help you guys with tonight?
I would just say our thanks to you for your continued investment in this and the youth that are involved in it. As you know, it was a dream of mine and many other council members that something like that could happen in our city.
Yes.
And it still is a long-term dream that we want to make something happen with ICE in this community because it's a time when tourism needs it and our community needs it. So we are still supportive of the notion if we can make it all work. And I'm hopeful that a year from now, we'll be able to come back to this and still have monetary funds available to assist in that as you move forward, because we want ICE in our community. At least I certainly do. I don't want to speak for my other council members. I can only
Thank you.
speak for me.
Well,
So thank you.
Thank you guys again.
Thank
I
you for
appreciate
the
it.
update.
Yep.
And keep us informed as to the progress and what's going on.
Absolutely. All right, thank you guys. Have a good evening.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
Hey, thanks. All right. Is there anyone else for general public comments? No? Okay, then we will move on to our business agenda with our public portion. Item number 1, consider a local consent alcohol permit to Maverick, Inc., 1405 South Main.
Jimmy Roden with the police department. The police department conducted the normal checks for this permit, and we would recommend positively that they receive the permit. There were no issues found.
This is just to sell the beers through their convenience store. Is that the idea?
Correct.
Yes.
It would be just like every other Maverick
Yeah.
that we've had in town.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
Nope, I'm just here if you guys have any questions, so.
Okay. Are there any other?
I do have my VABC license as well, so, and I'll be working in that store.
I have a question, but it's not related to this, but it is about the traffic at Maverick. Did that ever get resolved? And I know Kit's not here this evening. Are you concerned about the in and the outs of the entrance in and out of that new Maverick? Are you aware of that at all, Jonathan?
I'm sorry, I can't comment on that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
Ken-
the last we talked about it, there would be a four-way stop
Right?
up the block.
But we wanted them to move the in and the out from the locations that had it, because it would force traffic to cross the oncoming lane of traffic to get out, rather than provide that to be the in and make the out at the four-way stop. Did that get communicated, do you know, down to anyone at Maverick?
Not that I'm aware of, but.
Will you come up to the microphone and just state your name for the record and all of that
My
so we
name
have
is
it?
Jessica. I'll be the store director for the new store, so,
I'm sorry, your first name?
Jessica.
Jessica, thank you.
Not that I'm aware of, but you can call my corporate office and they'll be able to have those answers for you, so.
I'm sure the engineering department's working with it, but I do want to follow up on that.
I'll check with Kit tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay. So any other comments on our local
ma'am.
consent?
Alcohol permit?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we're good with that going on the consent agenda?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, item number 2, consider approving the final plat of the Sage Springs Phase 4 subdivision in the vicinity of 2150 Northfield Road.
Sorry,
We
happy
don't even
happy
have
birthday.
you on the agenda.
Well, it's Rosenberg and Associates. And
Name?
me, Ben Batty.
There you go.
What would you like to know? Dallas has been looking at your crown, and so if you could let him borrow one on the way out.
Dallas is
Have you seen it? Like
jealous.
he's super excited.
Mr. Batty, there's no changes to the overall layout
No.
based on the other phases of the
This is
development?
exactly what we did before. As far as when we came here, this was phase 3. Phase 3, all of these all but one have been actually excavated and ready to go, and I think we only got final approval from the city like 2 weeks ago, maybe, somewhere in there. But nothing has changed here from when we came through with final plat, or final, when you approved the whole subdivision. Everything's identical. This does complete here. There is a 10-foot, and I guess this is a walking trail on this side, that, you know, the city does a cooperation with the developer to extend, do it like their wider sidewalks. So it's part of the walking trail, and that is here on this side. And we put it in on phase 3, and now we're putting it in on phase 4 here, along with those block walls y'all like so much. They're expensive.
As those roads widen and noise happens, your neighbors like
Well,
it as well.
noise, yeah.
Oh, it's not
It's
there
true.
now, but you watch.
I know, it will
You
be,
watch.
it will be, and that'll probably be going under, make it a bigger, under the freeway at some point in the future. So it is probably a really good thing.
You can do one favor for me, just one tree.
I know you
One
want
tree
trees.
right on the corner.
You want trees,
Right on the
Scott.
corner, buddy.
Trees cost money.
Welcome
They use
people.
water.
Welcome people to your subdivision.
Are horrible. Well, at making tree issues. Like, they don't rake up their leaves.
Ben.
That's true. They don't take care of their yards. They don't. So you got to make it as easy as possible for them. You take care of your yard, Scott.
I do.
I take care of mine. Some people just don't.
All right.
But I will. In the next one that comes around, I'll guarantee you a tree in front of every structure. How about that? Iron Bend. Write it down and remind me
I
that
am
that
going
is
to hold you
Iron
to
Bend,
that.
and that's the next one coming around, and we'll make sure you have a tree. But kinds that don't take water, whatever the natural ones are here.
Okay.
That's-
Like, we're gonna
Sagebrush.
skip past, like,
Sagebrush. Yeah, well, giant sagebrush tree. Do they make those?
Are we good?
Yeah, so legally, bonds in place, fines and fees, or not fines.
Fe-
Fees have been paid.
That was in my previous life,
Yeah,
Tyler.
that was my
Fines.
previous-
Now they're fees.
That was my previous life.
Was it? Okay. I'm sorry.
Fees have been paid. Everything legally is good to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
all right, any other comments or questions for Ben? Other than your desire for trees?
No.
Trees. We'll get you some trees, Scott, I promise.
Okay, are we good with this going on the consent?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Get Dallas's crown.
All right. Item number 3, consider approving the final plat of the Mountain Vista PUD Phase 2 subdivision in the vicinity of 840 South, 25 West.
My name is Curtis Carter, and I'm representing the owners for this Phase 2, the Mountain Vista PUD. Is there any questions? We're just extending it to the south.
It's going to be just same typical design, continuing south on that.
Yeah, we're anticipating building twin homes.
Okay.
That's part of Phase 1.
You're still doing the pylons and stuff, whatever they're called, the piers underneath the ground for the
Yes, all of
subsidence up
the,
there.
this soil in this area is very collapsible. So everything that's being built there is on helical piers.
Okay,
Can you,
thanks.
can you tell me the width of that private street that runs through the middle of the development? Right there. Sorry. I'm sure it's there, but I had a hard time.
45 feet.
45.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was my only question.
So the bond agreement's been signed, letter credits in hand, all fees have been paid, so we're good to move forward on my side of things.
All right. Any other comments, questions? We good with this going on consent?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, item number 4, consider vicinity plan for the Arbor Park Townhomes located approximately 498 West, 1225 North. You want the crown?
I do not.
Like one of these?
I think we should make him wear it while he presents.
I could do it.
How do you want us to vote on this? How badly?
I'll put it on. I mean,
How many in the audience would like him to wear the crown?
take it to a vote.
All right,
don't
you just
know.
have to say your name and then we'll skip all the crown and you
All
can
right.
keep going.
Dallas Buckner, Go Civil Engineering. This is a vicinity plan, Arbor Park Townhomes. This was a vicinity plan that was actually previously approved by council.
we had gotten it all the way to the point of bonding, construction drawings approved, final plat, and the developer just decided not to move forward within that 2-year window that if vicinity plans are approved. He now would like to move forward, and so we're just bringing it back through the process. But it's a PUD project. We have phase lines shown on there, but 49 units. It's roughly 3 acres, zoned R3. This is Northfield, so it's almost across the street from the hospital.
I just have a question. It's on phase 3. Well, first of all, any ideas on, are the phases going to be developed very close together, or does that just really depend on how development goes and sales and?
Yeah, I think it'll be based on market demand, but the way that townhouses are going, I
Yeah.
think it's going to be pretty quick.
I wanted to clarify, just for my own education, on phase 3, you have a playground detention area and a pavilion back there in that, northwest corner of the
Yep.
property? How does that work? Explain to me how it's being envisioned. Do you know?
So the way it works is there's the detention volume that's required for the increased runoff, but you can do that to what the city standard is, which is where it's fenced with the maintenance road and everything. Or if you don't go to a certain depth, if you make it something that's less than 2 feet deep, you can do gentle side slopes and you can put grass in it, kind of like equestrian. Equestrian has that, and so it can be essentially a dual purpose.
And that's kind of what they're promoting there, is a
Yep.
dual-purpose playground detention area.
Yep, and then there's a storm drain. So actually going through this subdivision right here, there's those kind of dash lines. It's hard to see on this because this is a scan, but there is an underground storm drain that runs out that's part of the city public storm drain. And
Connects
so
to that street.
having a pipe below ground allows us to not, have that basin up high and have to daylight it on the existing grade. We're able to take it subsurface and then still get that volume and have a nice, not just a fenced pit for
Sure.
sagebrush.
Sure,
So.
great. And then finally, for me at least, I noticed in the Planning Commission, there were some notes about the questions on the HOA and things, and I know we're not involved in that particularly, but I'm just wondering, is that in the process of being resolved, or do you have any ideas on where that stands?
So this project came through more than 2 years ago, so that's before I was at Go Civil, but my whole time of being here, I've never heard of anything of it being an extension of another HOA. It's always...
Is it the
as far
same
as-
owners of the 2 parcels?
Not that I'm aware of. I thought this developer was, yeah.
The homeowner association representative from across the street
Right,
told us about something, a provision in their guidance,
right.
but it was past 7 years. And
Okay.
so it had expired. Anything that they thought they might do with people across the street had expired.
Okay.
Am I right about that?
That's the way I remember it.
That's what he said.
I think it was done in 2012, and 7 years made it 2019, and so it was done.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have anything to add? All right, any other comments, questions, concerns?
Here's the crown.
You good with that going on consent?
Yes.
Keep flipping through my stuff. All right, item number 5, consider vicinity plan for the South Mountain Estates Phase 2 subdivision.
Dallas Buckner, Go Civil. So this is phase 2 of the estates. You can see phase 1 over here, so there's kind of a gap in the properties of where we're developing. But this was phase 1 that was built last fall. And then here is the Canes Eagle Ridge phase 1. So we're up against that. And then the Sitla Iron Horse property is along the north boundary. And then this is South Mountain Drive. What we're showing is 9 lots. It's the residential estates subdivision lot size, so the lots vary, but they're in that half-acre range. It's going to be your standard residential estates road cross-section, so no curb and gutter, just the roadside borrow ditches with that kind of asphalt walking paint stripe lane.
Exactly like what is happening.
Yep, same concept aesthetically and all that.
Anything you have? All right, comments, questions? We're good with this going on consent?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. consider vicinity plan for the Southridge Condominiums Phase 2. I don't know who's speaking to.
This is phase 2 of our Southridge condos. These are existing units which are occupied, and some of the residents.
You still have to say your name, Kent.
Kent Heidemann, I'm sorry. And several of them have approached me and wanted to purchase their units, and so I came to the staff and they suggested we create a PUD and condominiumize what we have there, and so that's what we've done, or we're in the process of doing.
So there are currently people living in Phase 1 now?
Mm-hmm.
I know where the old hospital is, but can you just sort of orient me a little bit? I was trying to really figure out this map to where Phase 2 is in relationship to the hospital itself.
I can operate your...
Is Altamira on the left-hand side?
Altamira is right here.
Okay.
So phase 1 is right over here. And we'll do phase 3, phase 4, and phase 5.
So Phase 3 and 4 and 5, I mean, they're more towards the...
South
side of the building?
Southeast, south and southeast.
Okay.
Anything to add on this one? All right. Are there any additional comments, questions?
Do we have any issues with zoning or anything with this?
No.
Up in that area?
No.
Okay.
All right. Are you good with this going on consent?
Yep.
All right.
Thank you. We like hotly debated items.
Yes, don't we all? All right.
Well, they're coming.
Item number 7, consider a vicinity plan for the Amy Avenue PUD. Where? Speaking to this. Don? Or someone from Platt and Platt? I don't see Platt and Platt.
Left you with this, Tom?
Well,
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Don Bedreau, City Engineering. So this is a 8-unit townhome proposal on Amy Avenue. It meets your typical PUD standards. There was a question at the last meeting that arose regarding, what's the street to the south there, Jonathan?
45 North.
Right? Yeah. Whether that was a dedicated right-of-way or not. According to the city engineer, that is a dedicated right-of-way. You probably saw that in the minutes. There was certainly concerns with traffic and view sheds, and it was recommended for denial by the Planning Commission.
Can you explain the dark gray on the map? What does that indicate on 45 North?
Those are street improvements.
But just that section?
To the best of my knowledge, yeah.
Okay.
Being that they're adjacent to the subdivision.
And can we, I think I know, but I just want to make sure I verify. Originally, we went through this about a year and a half ago, or approximately, and it was a 6-unit duplex at that time, or townhomes, I don't recall.
I think this has been around before I've been here. But
yeah.
My recollection
Yes,
was
do you want
that.
to add into that?
New
That's
owners.
correct. It came through as 6 units
6
originally.
units, yeah.
Okay, and so we have new owners, is that correct, or the
I
property?
believe so, yes.
Okay.
And just so everyone's clear, that passed city council, so that vicinity plan, it's less than 2 years old, so they could move forward on that. But the new owner decided to come through and with this amended vicinity plan.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions for Dawn at this point?
No, I want to hear
There's
from
some residents that are
I want to hear
here
from the public first.
to speak.
Right.
So,
All right.
all right. Well,
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jonathan Pine. Mayor, happy birthday.
hey, thanks.
I hope my passion doesn't ruin your day, but not only am I fighting, you guys have been battling the federal government to get your public lands open all the way at Collab Canyons and the backcountry there as well. So it's been
And we
a dual
appreciate
front.
that.
It's been a dual front row war, I guess. But my first question is, I remember when this came forth a year and a half ago with the 6 townhomes or whatever. I don't remember garages being a part of that. Is there proof that that was also in that plan and was also approved with that plan?
Garages?
I don't recall exactly what was in it, but whatever was there was all approved. I don't recall what was in the plan originally.
My
Either
recollection.
driveways or a garage, they had to have an off-street
I'm
parking.
going to go with recollection, but I think the first phase, the previous proposal had garages. That's my recollection.
But we'd have to pull everything to guarantee. Yeah.
I think the problem is, as it's even listed here as a two-story building, the reality is this is a three-story building, which is completely different than a two-story building. So recollection, I feel like, is a little bit subpar as far as what we're actually approving today.
And we're not
Gotcha.
approving.
No, for sure. And correct me if I'm wrong, in the action meeting, that's closed. That's like no more public comment at that point. And it's not closed. This is the time for the public comment. You guys make the decision next meeting. Is that correct, how this works? Perfect. So, short story long. First of all, let's just have everyone stand up who this affects real quick. We can do that again. Is that all right? Stand up. Oh, come on. There we go. That's a lot of people in this room, right? And so there's other people who aren't here or couldn't be here due to surgery. That's Mr. Olds, who lives up here in this property here. Marion Whitney just had cataract surgery yesterday. She's here. So these people are also aren't represented. Additionally, thanks to the mayor, we'll be also listening to another owner. Can we just get a Google Maps overview of this so we can just kind of see everything very clearly? I think first and foremost, it's important to demonstrate the history of this. Back in 2005 was the first time that this parcel had been voted upon or considered being developed. It initially was an R1. The original owner wanted to go to R2. Paul Cousins, who was on this council, went to members like Meridon here and basically said, your best bet is just to come to a compromise and agree to do 2 duplexes. That agreement's gone. It's not this gentleman's fault, but that's just the reality of the situation, that that was ignored, and now we're here to R3. I'm not trying to argue the past. I'm just trying to state simple facts that every time this has come up, this community has been shafted, and none of our concerns have ever been addressed, and that is shameful. I understand that the property owners have a right, but when it comes to the rest of the community, we have rights too, I feel like, because this affects people in a dynamic way. When you change from a single-story home, which was originally designed for, not single-story, sorry, a single-family home, which is originally designed for, and put approximately 8 townhomes, which can, regardless of what he wants to do with them, down the road that could hold 4 students each. That is 32 people, if my math is correct, on that corner lot. That dynamically changes this area, and it affects everybody here. And again, so the problem with these 3-story buildings, and a 2D doesn't really do any justice. These are 4 townhomes right here that are 2 stories. So when these 8 get built here, those 3 stories are going to block everybody's view right here. This has an unobstructed view all the way out to the mountains on that side and this side. It doesn't matter. 3 stories is going to block these views. That's just the reality of the situation. Furthermore, we don't want 8 townhomes back here. Every time this council approves the other monstrosity, like this 4-story apartment complex here, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to in this neighborhood who had no idea this was being built until story upon story upon story. People in this community no longer want to see these buildings built. And every time we build something over 2 stories, you people are dynamically changing this city. And you're going to do so to a point of no return, and you will lose the specialness of this city, why people love it and love to live here. So my first argument is obviously keeping it 6. We've already agreed upon this a year and a half ago, and like I said, it's been going on for 2005, went up to 2009, 2012, 2016 was another approval, 2019 was another approval. Every few years, it gets more and more greedy, and as these builders come in, they get more money at the cost of everybody else who lives here. And that is unfair. So that is the general concern, I think, for people here is A, getting it to 2 stories if possible, and B, keeping it at 6 instead of 8. Furthermore, can you put this some photos on there? I came here in 2019 and tried to address this road here at 45 North. If I can even quote Kit Wareham, as I thank you, the recorder, Miss Savage. I appreciate your hard work and getting me all those documents today. You said like 10 days and you got them like the next day, so thank you so much. That was really awesome. She deserves Employee of the Month.
We'll be sure to give that to Renan.
Give it to Renan.
First of all, I'll just address these issues. So this is in my backyard, and this is 45 North. So what these 2D little maps that you guys get don't show is this road. And so this road, my actually house from this location sits another 8 feet below this. This road at any given point sits up to 5 to 10 feet above everybody's house. If you can go back to the Google Maps. Sorry. All these people here, so Marion Whitney is affected by this. I'm affected by this empty lot owner here, and then the gentleman who owns this and rents it out to college kids, who you'll hear from later on. This road is going to be used in a dynamic way by all these people, and I can pull up what Kit said, but basically, even in his own words, people are going to use the path of least resistance. And all these people here, it's close to the university. There's going to be college kids who live there. This is the easiest road to get to the college. Hands down. It makes no sense to travel here. And any amenities on the south side of town, Walmart, any of those other amenities, this is by far the quickest road here. The problem with this road is it's not even wide enough for two people to pass. People up here in this area here and here use this road as a way to walk their dogs and recreate, etc. Like I said, you can't even get two cars to pass each other. So in its current state, it is absolutely unfit. And when I was here a year and a half ago, it was approved by Mr. Issam and Mr. Phillips that they agreed that this road, and even through the Planning Commission, they agreed that this road needed to be developed due to safety and other concerns. Our concerns, and I agree in an unbiased fashion, that needed to be developed. However, if you go back to those other photos I sent you, or gave to you, this road has a dynamic impact on the privacy of the people who live here. If you can scroll to the next photo. So this is, you can see, this is the empty lot here, and I've talked to this gentleman, he agrees, wasn't able to make it again tonight. Are you? Perfect.
That's
Can
the
you?
empty lot on
This is
College
this
Way.
is the empty lot on College Way. Can you imagine trying to sell this lot with another busy street on the backside? We already live on College Way. You guys already know how busy that road is. Despite whatever statistics that Kit wants to say, it's a busy road and things need to be done. To have a second busy road behind us, no way. Again, if it was a single family house that was there, not a big deal. But this council changed that dynamically by approving these things, and now it's going to use way more. Please go to the next photo. So this is, again, from the road looking down. Next photo. Could you imagine that being your backyard with people looking at it? So this is from the house on the corner of College Way and 45 North. I mean, you can see someone's facial expressions. That is that close. This is from their back porch, and you can look directly into the house. If you go to the next photo. So this is from the road. This isn't even like on the edge of the road. This is on the way back of the road. And you can see this is a bedroom here, and this is the kitchen here. No privacy, nothing allowed. And again, they can't even build a fence high enough. And to build block wall or whatever is going to be super expensive to be able to try and maintain their privacy. Go to the next photo. So this is from the tallest portion of my property. And again, that is facial expression view distance, right? So I work in emergency services, and when I come home, I want my privacy. I deal with the public every single day. And when I come home, my garden is how I relax. And to be able to not be able to retreat and hide from people is unacceptable to me when that's being forced upon me by these decisions. I've already tried to plant trees here, but you know what? Trees are expensive. People don't take care of them, and they take water, right? So, keep going to the next one.
You gotta win me over, buddy. That's not the way to do it.
Wrong comment. I guess.
Yeah, you can zoom in. Like this is just way too close. Is there any more photos on that?
That was the last one.
That was the last one. Perfect. So, I'm not going to bring a problem without a solution, right? So, now I know this is different from law or whatever else, but in my mind, when people are allowed to come in here and build this area, they should be responsible for the dynamic impacts it's going to have. Now, Kit has already stated that this road won't be developed until these two R1 housing units are sold and then developed. But nobody here, Mr. Olds, who's not able to hear, there's no way he's going to develop his land. And Meridon, who you'll hear from soon too, does not want to develop her land either. So that road then will remain undeveloped, a safety hazard as far as people being able to pass each other on that road. And furthermore, our privacy rights. So we already went through the process of who owns this road. So Meridon used to own this road. The deed has been given to the city as a right-of-way. It is a 50-foot something right-of-way. I think you've got the actual numbers there. So the question comes into fact where this actual property line goes. This is the power lines here. And there's a long stretch of dirt road here, and her fence line is somewhere down here. So there's more than 50 feet here. So what I would propose, in the very least, is to build, as this road gets developed, to build some type of privacy wall, some type of vegetation, something so we can maintain our privacy as landowners here. Again, this wouldn't be an issue if the council hadn't made it an issue by changing that from an R1 to an R2 to an R3. And so if they can make this road further on this side where we can have Meridon's property again on this side, and we figure out something, come down to some kind of conclusion, either a developer and some kind of compromise of who can pay and help pay for that wall or privacy so we can maintain those rights. Let me look at my notes real quick, sorry. Mayor, you said I was able to phone the owner of this property here so he can have his voice be heard today, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Perfect. I will just give him a call and let him speak. Yeah, it sure is.
This is a lot like phone a friend. You should have to make sure that he says his name for the record.
Yeah.
And that we have him on electronic communication means.
Hey, you there?
Hey, I am Jonathan. Thank you very much.
Yep, no worries. Mr. Schmidt, if you wouldn't mind pronouncing your name, that you are telephoning into this conference.
Put me on speaker.
Yeah, you're on speaker.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate the council taking the time to listen to me. I own the property at 55 North College Way, and I bought it from a very good real estate agent that helped me find this for not only my immediate needs at that point in time, but my future needs, which would be after I'm done with my employment here where I live. I make every time I get an opportunity, I move back up to the Cedar City, my adopted home. My concern is over the last 9 years, there's been an increase in traffic, both on that road on the back, and with the increase of traffic, there's been additional dust and dirt. I love Cedar City. It's my next home. And I hope you love Cedar City too. The one development that took place down on the north side that John alluded to, that one building, has made a significant impact on both my view and the additional traffic on College Way. John talked about mitigating some of these things. We need to start thinking outside the box. Yes, the landowner has the right to develop his property, but as Jonathan stated, we also have we have to look at the totality, not the individual, but the totality of the whole property. When that one new apartment complex was developed, it now looks like a thumb in the middle of a hand, and it's not a pleasant sight for us. What can we do? Well, there are several things. John alluded to building a privacy and sound wall because the increased traffic along that road will impact the quality of life for those people who live on College Way. The increased traffic will also bring additional dust. And John eloquently put out that sound wall vegetation might be a reasonable compromise. But one more thing that has increased, not only within those roads there, but in the city as general. College Way is for lack of a better term, a very busy street. There's a lot of commercial traffic on College Way. One thing that we can probably improve the quality of life of those individuals who live along College Way is to decrease the amount of commercial traffic that goes up and down that street, College Way. That's one thing that we can consider as one of the possible mitigations for increasing the number of residences there. When you sit there and you enjoy your evening on the front porch, looking out what I used to be able to look out up Lund Road there, and having the trucks from all the construction coming up and down that street, it really took away from that. And I've been in that particular house. It's not just a new thing for me. We've been in that house approximately 10 years. I hope the council takes the whole thing in consideration. Not just the developer, but the residents who have been there for years and years. And I appreciate you allowing me to phone in my comments. I'm watching on the feed right now. And I thought we could do it on a Zoom meeting, but this is the next best thing. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask.
Any questions currently for him?
Could he just state his name for the
Can you
record?
just state your name?
My name is Douglas Schmidt. The last name is spelled S-C-H-M-I-D-T.
Perfect. there any other? Thank you, Douglas.
Thanks, Doug. So I know a lot of things have already been said. I just want to really quickly reiterate the issue.
Just one quick sec. Just for the record, I'm the agent that sold that house to Doug.
That's funny.
10 years ago.
I'll let him know that.
Just so everybody knows.
So
that's who it was.
So again, just to reiterate, 3 stories affects the view here. It also affects these homes here. You'll hear from these gentlemen later. 8 is way more than 6, which we've already agreed to. It's been a long process. We're tired of having to come here and deal with this. And again, the road here, privacy issues, is also an issue. Thank you.
Jonathan, I need to ask you a question before you
Please,
sit
sir.
down.
Descriptive
I certainly do not want to be contentious here because I have concerns about this project as well.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure, how long have you lived in your home on College Way?
Yeah, since 2013. So it was December of 2012, moved in right around there.
So, and you didn't think that would be a busy street? That's been a busy street for 15 years.
No. I'm totally fine with College Way being a busy street. To me, that is something I accepted. My children will never be able to play in the front yard. Totally okay with that.
Okay.
What I was not aware, and the reason why I bought this house, was for the amazing backyard. It is a half acre in the middle of town.
Right.
You can see how green, how many trees are there, and it's an amazing place. I will never have any privacy for myself or my children in there, and having a busy street on the backside is absolutely unacceptable.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Lance Duffield. I am a partner at Reliant Engineering and Design, and we are the project designer. While we've contracted with Platt & Platt, they do a lot of civil work for us. We're primarily structural engineers and architectural designers. So it seems like the concern you're expressing is more about the unimproved road as opposed to our project.
Oh no, the concern is the project.
Okay, fine. Let me speak to that then. When we start a project, we typically look at the city general plan and the zoning for the property. We've designed a project. This is an acre site. Under the R3 zoning, it will carry 24 units. Technically, practically it doesn't. But we rely on the city's guidance for general plan information and zoning, and we have designed a project that meets the general plan and the zoning requirements. And that's, we met with Kit very early in the process. We met with Don very early in the process, and there was no comment about traffic problems, which seems to be the major issue that these people are talking about. So we've relied on guidance from the city and designed a project to meet the city requirements.
Mr. Duffield, can you explain to me, sir, right here. Can you explain to me your comment about 24 units technically but not practically? I don't understand that.
It's the R3
If it's
zoning-
3 bedrooms and there's 8, that's 24.
R3 zoning allows for 24 units per acre.
Right.
That's within this is an acre site. We're only doing 8 units on an acre site, so we're well within the zoning requirements. So comments about too high density, like I say, we're consistent with.
Okay, but it's still 8 units, it's 3 bedrooms, and that's 24, so.
No, it's not bedrooms, it's units.
Okay.
I think there was a project previously designed that was a 24-unit project, living units, dwelling units, basically.
Mhm.
There were 2 and 3 bedroom units
Right.
previously. So we're talking dwelling units, not bedrooms.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
If I can just re-clarify, our biggest issue is not the traffic. Our biggest issue is when an R3 gets zoned in in an area that is zoned R1 on 3 sides, and you have 3-story buildings going in there. That is an issue. That it's not about traffic. It's about quality of life and privacy and other issues. Could you imagine a 3-story, 8-townhome building being built across the street from you? Because that is what Marion Whitney, a nice 80-something-year-old woman, who has to deal with now. Furthermore, there's something else you mentioned. So this was negatively recommended by the planning commission, and even Mr. Issen said, who always votes in favor of the developer, said, you know, enough is enough. We've pulled the carpet underneath you multiple times. Ison, thank you for the correction. But I hope you stick by that wordage as well, and it's not just lip service.
My name is Jason Hansen, and Mayor, my present to you for your birthday is I'm going to take 60 seconds or less.
Hey, way to
So,
go.
yeah. So I'm one of the residents who lives in this area, and Jonathan did a fantastic job of explaining things.
Could you point out where you live, sir?
I am.
There's a point
I'm at
right
the top of the hill. I am so anti-tech. Anyway, I'm at the top of the hill. I'm not across the street, like some of them. But you know, I found out there were townhomes there, which clearly I wasn't thrilled about in the first place, since I thought it was zoned single family, but it is what it is. But the fact that they're now trying to take it to 6 to 8, clearly not a good idea. You know, if any of us lived directly across the street, or even where I did, we would not want that. None of you here can honestly say that you'd be happy if there were townhomes, let alone they were trying to take 6 to 8. I promised my sweet wife that I'd say that even though this isn't about traffic, that traffic is a pain in the butt, taking kids to school in the morning. So the Planning Commission was wonderful. We had a great meeting with them. I appreciated everything they said. They understood. They voted to keep it at 6 instead of 8. And I hope the council will do the same thing because, again, if the gentleman here, if he were living across the street, he wouldn't want 8. I mean, I'm a small business owner. I totally understand the desire to make money, but there's that fine line, and this is crossing the fine line. So I hope it'll keep it at 6. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Brody Fawcett, so I'm the owner of this piece of land right here. Craig is my business professor and my entrepreneur teacher over here, so you can blame him, I guess. No. I think there's
all your fault, Craig.
No, I think there's definitely a lot of assumptions made here. No, it's not all about the money. I was born and raised in Cedar. Everyone keeps saying townhomes. Townhomes are all together, right? They're unit by unit. They share the same wall. These are twin homes, so I'm not sure if you've seen the plans for them, but they are beautiful homes, like arguably probably the nicest twin homes in all of Cedar, as far as like they're not Formica countertops, they're designed really, really well, they're beautiful, they're twin homes, they have 2-car garages, they're not, I know it's alluded to like just stacking students in there, and it's like I said, there's a lot of assumptions made. These are the plan as of now is for families to go to. There are not a lot of family-friendly rentals in the middle of town for families with kids. And I know this. I have other properties in town and constantly getting calls of like, hey, can you fit my family? Can you fit my family? And so as far as what this is doing for the community and for the area, it's, in my opinion, 100% adding value to the entire area. I live within a half a mile from this place as well. And so I think it's just important to understand what's actually being put in, and it's not just going to be slammed in. It is zoned for 24 units. That's not bedrooms, that is units. And so the fact that we're only doing 8 of them, yeah, the previous owner who went through some divorce issues and needed to sell the property, yes, he had gotten it approved. He actually had 2 plans he sent me over, spent a lot of money. One of them was a 24 unit plan, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, double-decker parking, and he spent a lot of money getting it all planned out. Because there was no backyard, there was a valley where, you know, all the water and the drainage was going to, and I saw that and I was like, yes, is that more lucrative? 100%. You can fit way more people in there, of course, but as far as aesthetically pleasing, definitely not. And like I said, 100%, if I lived across the street, I would gladly have no problem with looking across at this because of how well it's going to be done. And then the last thing that I was just going to say is, well, did you have a question?
I did, but I can wait for you to finish.
Okay, go for it.
Those first 4 or the back 4, I don't know what you want to call them there.
Yeah.
How do you plan to develop? Are the backyards going to be landscaped? And if not, would you consider moving them further back to give some more frontage, to give some more yard in the front?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing there's a little deck patio out the back. There's a slider from the kitchen, and so it's just making enough room for the deck. But there's probably a few more feet to play around with. Yeah. Really, if you're looking at the frontage side of it, there's quite a bit of frontage actually. If you're looking at the space between those first 4 versus the other 4 on the very end. Are you talking about, sorry, the very
South? The south?
The very south? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are meant for big backyards. If you've seen the lot, it's up to this point over here.
I think we've all seen it. We've driven by it many times.
Yeah, so it gets pretty steep right here, right? So I mean, this isn't even buildable. It's really steep. Right. It protects all the neighbors up here. that, like I said, I'm not sure how it affects. This road has been stated it's never going to be developed. It's just too steep, and that's just in past conversations with Kit. Now, I think that the important thing to remember in this whole thing is, this property, yes, this is what it's been zoned for. It's been zoned for a lot more than this to hold that. The fact that, and I sympathize with people that live here as far as, yes, you get used to things a certain way and you get used to things how they are, and it's great. And you get to look across and see this lot with nobody there, and it kind of feels like part of your yard maybe. But at the end of the day, it's not. And I think that the reason that it's zoned the way that it's zoned is it's meant to eventually be developed into what it is. It's just kind of toying with that line between emotion. Well, I don't want that across the street from me, and it's like, well, that's great. I understand that, but also understand that you also, if you don't want to cross the street, then you can buy it, or you knew what was eventually going to happen with a lot across the street. And as far as this could be condensed down back to single family, and yeah, we could fit 3 big homes there, 4 big homes there. These are, like I said, going to be well done. They're going to be amazing as far as uplifting and adding to the community. So, and as of now, the plans could always change, but the plan's to put families in there. It's not to jam a bunch of college students in or anything like that. It's to put families that need nice housing. There's not enough of that for families in Cedar City, to be honest.
How many square feet are the units?
Lance? 1,800.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
They are planned to be rented and not owned, correct?
Actually, the plan as of now, the construction loan on it is 12 months with the intent to sell them. So if anybody here wants to purchase one across the street from where you live, by all means, contact me. But that's the plan as of now, to sell them. Now, as far as who might buy them and what they might do with them, that's obviously completely up to them.
Sure.
But the plan is to develop them and sell them. The financing that I have for the project is a 12-month period. It has to be paid off in 12 months, which means I have to sell them.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.
Thank you.
My name is Lola Atwood, and I live in the south unit of the 4 that are going to be impacted the most. Not only will I lose my backyard, my side yard is also going to go. The property that they're building on is very steep. And I can't, where I live and look at it every day, I can't imagine having 4 buildings there. They are only, how far apart are the buildings? 10 feet. Okay, why can't we just have 3? I don't want to prevent you from building, but why so many?
We could have 3, we could have 6, we could have 12.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, that we tried to maximize.
Will you come back up to the microphone so you can be heard? If you're going to talk, you have to come and say your name at the microphone.
It's being streamed, so.
My name is Lance Duffield. Do I have to do the Reliant Engineering again?
Oh,
As
yeah.
a project Reliant
Yep, the whole
Engineering
thing.
project designer. We've tried to be sensitive to develop the property to maximize the density that the property will allow, that it's allowed within the zoning and within the general plan. It meets the requirements that are outlined by Cedar City for us to design to. And I think we've done a really good job. These units have really nice backyards. The front, if you will notice, look at the plans, the front of the buildings are staggered back away from the street. They're not a straight line along the property line. We've got a pretty sophisticated landscaping plan for the front of the project, and I think it's going to be a real addition to your community.
Okay, how tall will they be?
3 stories.
Okay,
That's allowed in the zoning
I know
ordinance.
it's allowed in the zoning, but why are you doing it when it is impacting so many people?
Well,
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
I have an obligation to my client to design something that meets his requirements so that he can have a profitable project. And we do that in a very sensitive way. These are really good-looking buildings.
I don't care if they're good looking.
And
my
they're
view.
within the zoning, and they meet the general plan requirements.
Okay. And
That's-
but I'll never,
that's what it is.
I'll never see the morning sun.
That's not true.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's your opinion. And it's not really relevant to the discussion. We're meeting the zoning requirements, we're meeting the general plan. That's really the criteria that we designed to. And we did not do this in a vacuum. At the beginning of this project, we met with Kit, we met with Don, we went over what we were thinking about doing, and we didn't have any resistance from engineering or planning.
Why didn't you include the population around this property?
That's not required. We're not required to go seek opinions from, we're not seeking a rezone. We're not seeking an amendment to general plan. If we were, then you would be notified. But we're working within the rules that the city has established for us to work to.
Sir, would you mind providing your contact information that I would like to come and sit down and see some of the other aesthetics
Sure.
and whatnot? Would you mind?
I'm right across the street.
What's your phone number?
Let me give you a card.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll do 5 more minutes of comments on this one.
My name is Meridon Nielsen. I've been here so many times for the last 15 years. Most of you don't even know what that last 15 years is. I've lived in this same spot now for most of my life. Last week we met with the City Planning Commission, and we told them the same story that we're telling you tonight. And they were very kind. They listened to us, they understood us, our feelings, and they gave us a negative vote. And I know that that decision was passed on to you. And we appreciated that, Mr. Isom. I'm older than any of you here. And so I know this history completely through from the very first of Cedar City, where these roads came from, where they were established, how they all got there. Originally, this property was zoned R1. That makes sense. Somewhere, however, in the process, the City Council has changed it to R2, to R3, unbeknownst of anybody in the area. We don't know how that ever got to R3. And now we're battling that. And that's not fair. We should have been told that. As Jonathan has said, that property is zoned, 3 sides of that property is R1. And so to put a spot of property there and make it R3 just doesn't seem possible, doesn't seem right to me. Now, a year and a half ago, as been mentioned several times, we went through this very same process. We've done that for the last 15 years. It's been the same process over and over and over again. Why? Why can't we get it settled and those results, why don't they stick? A year and a half ago, we were in this very same spot. And Oliver, you were here, but Mr. Milling. You all remember that. Ron, you were here.
Been here 10.5 years.
Scott, all of you were here. Craig. We went through that. We didn't want that at all because it had been R1. But with the builder, we compromised. The compromise was not what we wanted. The compromise was not what the builder wanted. But to compromise with 6 duplexes felt like that would come together and make the feelings okay. Because we all had to give something. Now, the same thing that we're going through today, the issues that presented themselves that year and a half ago, or longer and longer and longer ago, are the very same conditions that still exist today. The intersection of that dirt road onto College Way is absolutely blind corner. You can see the turn that comes around College Way. You can see the dirt road that comes and connects with it. You cannot see the traffic coming from the College Way. Either if you were to come along the dirt road, turn right, or it'd be impossible to turn left because you cannot see. You can't see the traffic. And there's plenty of traffic. And as you say that traffic isn't a problem, traffic is a problem for me. It is my biggest problem. The intersection where College Way meets Center Street is a problem. I've talked to Kit for many, many years, and the city absolutely doesn't know what to do with it. They know there's a problem, but they don't know what to do with it. And so, by putting more units back on this property, adds how many more cars to that same problem? That same problem with more cars on it. And I invite all of you, if you haven't done it already, to come out when the university classes are going and see what that intersection is. It's bumper to bumper. I invite you to come out and go down College Way, turn left into that dirt road and see how dangerous that is. When you do that, come down, turn around, come back east on the dirt road and try to make a left turn. There is no way you can do that with the traffic that's on that road. And I invite any of you that haven't already done that to please do that. You would understand what we're saying. Now, if you'd come out after the university starts at 1:45 in the morning, 1:15 every hour in the afternoon, you will be stuck in traffic right there at that intersection. I would like to just address one thing. Mr. Fawcett, or you, it is a 3-story building that you're proposing. 8 3-story buildings, right? Okay. I know all about that. I know all about that. But we as neighbors and traffic, the city has a problem with that, with those 2 intersections and traffic. So, we appreciate your listening to us. We appreciate your concerns. There are some problems there that are going to emerge. And we would really appreciate another negative vote on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Don. Okay, your turn.
All right, so legally, there's a few things at play with this, and I wasn't at the Planning Commission. I wasn't able to address them at that time. Not that I think it would have changed their vote, but I just want to make sure that the council's aware of a few things. So this goes back to our zone change discussion, where we have a general plan and someone wants to change their zone to be in compliance with the general plan. When municipalities set out plans and we tell developers this is what we allow here or this is what we see here, then the city legally is required to follow what we're telling people they can do, unless we can articulate a specific reason why we're not going to follow our zoning laws. So in this situation, Lance spoke up and said multiple times that this was in compliance with our zoning laws and ordinances, setbacks, and different requirements that we allow buildings to be built at in the R3 zone. Once the council approved that to go to the R3 zone, the developer then has a expectation to be able to develop according to what we say he can. So the council needs to consider that. If you are going to make a recommendation to give a negative, to not allow this vicinity plan, it can't be based on fear or speculation or conjecture. So if traffic's an issue, I would encourage the council to get a study done or have engineering do a study so we can, there's an actual legitimate reason we can point to on why we're not going to pass this. That's the safest legal ground to stand on.
Do you know when that was actually changed to R3?
I don't, but I can research that and find out.
If you wouldn't mind, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be helpful, I think, and
Will you come back up, Mayor Don?
you'll have to go back up to the mic, Maradon. Sorry.
Jonathan and I were to the Renan Savage. We talked to her yesterday. We've asked her if she will research that, of when that date was. But it will take from 2 to 3 weeks before she can find that out. We want to know the actual dates.
Sure.
So Renan's out of the office, obviously, so I can get to that sooner.
So
Okay.
we'll have, as soon as we can get that information, Tyler will email that
Okay, thank
to you. No matter what, this will go on the action agenda, so there can be time to think and get this
Well, I think
additional
we need to do
information.
some more looking into research on
And some more
this.
research
Yeah,
and all of that.
Absolutely.
So this will go on the action agenda, so it will be discussed again in 2 weeks. And that's when the council will vote.
I've got some questions while we're doing research
I'll
and
get some
looking into a
comments
couple
too.
things.
Yes.
Now with this 45 North Street, I actually, the first apartment my wife and I lived in as adults who were paying our own way in Cedar City was in these Foothill Townhomes apartments right here. And so I am familiar with some of the traffic issues, especially with College Way. But with this 45 North, if that's ever improved, and I'm
hesitant to say it should be, because if it's improved, that means it gets used. And if it gets used, that's a huge problem because of the issues with College Way. You're never going to have people be able to turn left there. And it is a blind turn. And so I don't know if there's a way to either restrict that road in some way, or to, at the very least, ensure that turning on to College Way, that is a right turn only. Because I think if you have a left turn there, you're going to have at least a few accidents a year, if not more. So I'd like some more information on the plans for that road.
We can give you, so we had this conversation a year and a half ago.
I remember, yeah, I
Like,
was
this
watching.
feels a lot like Groundhog Day as
Right.
far as that part. And so we can pull the minutes and kind of see again what was discussed back then and do additional research if you would like.
And then the other thing is more of a, just kind of a concern I have for, what, I guess what I am personally considering and not considering in my decision. Around this area, we have this lot that's up for discussion right now. As far as undeveloped acreage in the area, there is also the one just south of Mr. Pine's property. There is the one where that road has attempted to be cut and was presumably abandoned, maybe revisited at some point, depending on the value of developing that. And then this property, Mrs. Nielsen's property as well. Those are in that immediate vicinity are all vacant lots, and I don't say this to be, I don't know, well, I'm just going to say it because in my day job where I do wills and trusts, I see a lot of people with gray hair, and I see a lot of gray hair today, which means in the next 30 to 40 years, ownership of these properties will likely change hands over time. And I'm just curious, whatever precedents we set today, in the coming decades, are we going to hold, whether it's your children, your grandchildren, or the people who buy it from them, to these same standards? This is right up next to an R1 neighborhood in many directions. It's also next to an R3. It's also next to a busy street. It's also near the college, and as the city changes, I don't know what's going to happen over time, but R1 housing is more and more expensive to develop as R1 housing, especially on a hillside with the current engineering specs we have. And, it may be that we need to see more duplexes or townhomes in some of these hilly areas, or leave them vacant and render your property useless. Anyway, I do sympathize with many of these issues. I have views out of my own windows that I don't always enjoy, and I think many do. But as far as from a policy-making standpoint, there are a number of factors we have to consider, and so there's some that anyway, those are some of the issues I'm wrestling with. But anyway, so the road and then the, what is going to happen with this area in the future.
Councilman Addis?
Okay, let me give you a little history. This will clarify some of it. I was waiting until everybody spoke. The property behind the corner he's looking at there, where the apartments existed, was set in R3 back in the 1970s. It was R3
You're talking
then.
about the ones on the hill there?
Yeah, right
Okay.
behind where they're talking about building this. That whole piece, other than the little section that they're wanting to build on, was R3. Their piece was RA, which is typical. RA1 as it's brought into the city. It comes in as RA1, which is residential ag. Okay. In 1984, it's still set as R3, and R3 across the street where the apartments are from their block of residential, R1, was setting in an R3 zone, and it butted up to highway service, but everything from West Harding Avenue was in the R3 zone. That was in 1984. In 1982 through 91, the piece behind it set in R336, which was a new zone we had, which was for 36 units at that particular time, and that was through 1991. And the R336 was still in place, and where I call it a bed and breakfast, the other manor was R336 then.
Henley Manor?
Yeah, Henley Manor. And in 1996, that's the way it's set then. That was still in that little piece was still in RA1. Council minutes from July 12th, 2017. Okay, the council voted to approve an ordinance for the zone change from residential ag to high-density residential, R3, on the piece that they're trying to build on. So that's the date that the council changed it, or voted on it. I was present, Terry Hartley was present, Craig Isom was present, and Fred Rowley was present. It was a unanimous vote. Councilman Cousins was not here that evening. So that's when the council actually moved from the RA1 to the R3. Multiple housing was in 2017. So that'll save you looking.
Thank you.
Well, that helps.
Well, I can dig stuff
Thanks.
up.
I got a few other research projects that I'll pass your way.
I have a research assistant that's very, very good at
I would like to
finding this stuff.
Could I ask a question, though, Councilman Adams, relative to something that Mayor Don was speaking to?
Sure.
When that happened in that July, was there notification of a zone change to the neighborhoods, and isn't that required?
It is required, so I can go back and look to make sure that notice was published. And
great, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and there should have been. The person I had contact with was Kelly Dalton, who has passed away since. But Kelly got notice because he told me of the zone change in 2017. So all of you around there should have got notice of the zone change.
Obviously, Jonathan would have been
obviously
there.
we
Well,
can,
2013. You moved in 2013.
Correct.
Yeah, we can check on that because you have to sign for it usually.
If I can be very, very brief on this subject. So there is
You just have to
notification.
say your name again.
Jonathan Pine, Cedar Norris College Way, whatever. So the problem with this notification system is we're only notified when the planning meeting happens, right? The vast majority of the community doesn't know when this city council meeting is going to happen. Yes, the city goes above and beyond as far as posting on their website, but I can guarantee you right now, you can look back and find that this is posted sometimes not even 24 hours in advance. If I work a non-9-to-5 job, I can't make that time work to come here. And so the problem is, I remember specifically, I think it was December 2016 when the Planning Commission happened. So I'm supposed to then, every single week, look on this website and see if this meeting is going to happen. That is what is required of me from the public service here. And so if I miss 1 week, I miss this voting meeting, and I miss my opportunity to speak. So that is the problem. Yes, it was changed to R3. It might have been unanimous, but I can guarantee you, nobody from this community knew it was happening, and thus our voices were not heard then.
Well, the notices will tell different when they get checking into the
But that
actual
notice is only for the planning commission.
signatures that you receive the notice. So we'll see who's on that. I mean, we have record of that.
No, that's totally fine, but
That's all
again,
I'm
that's
saying.
only for the planning
That's
commission.
correct.
It's not for
Right.
when it matters, which is
Right.
here.
That's correct.
And
That is correct,
we have
Jonathan.
changed the time period, correct, on
so,
notices?
yeah, notice would have been given at least 2 weeks prior to the meeting.
Right.
Okay.
And we talked about that and changed some of it, so.
But there is an expectation on the citizens to follow the meeting schedule after Planning Commission.
Yeah.
It is posted in the paper, it's posted on the website, it's on the Facebook page, but there isn't that personal contact like there is for the Planning Commission.
Right, and I know that some of the residents have been to every single one of those meetings. Marathon's been here, Kelly was here all the time, and some of you may have moved in, since, but I know that most of you attended a lot of those meetings. And I'm not trying to be hard on you, I'm just telling you some facts, but.
Did you happen to notice, did we change the general plan at that time then, or was it already in the general plan to be R3?
It was already in the general plan to be R3. Yeah, all we did was change the zone, because everything to the north, everything around their R1, except for Marathon's, because she's on the south of 45 north, everything around it, from around and Harding Avenue and up and to the back of it, has been R3 for a long time, clear back into the 70s. Yeah, and I figure you know that, but I just thought I'd mention that. Just it wasn't just changed yesterday. It's been, and I realize sometimes now that I've declared that I sold the house in that neighborhood, so I'm a real estate agent. Most of you know that anyway, or a real estate broker. One of the things we encourage people to do is their due diligence, and make sure when they're buying a piece of property that they research the zones around them and take a look at the views and the empty property. Every one of my owners, and Doug will tell you the same thing, I told him to realize that there's vacant property behind you. Unless you want to go buy it, it could change someday. So the only way to protect what you say is a view is to buy the property behind you. That's the only way you can protect it from every single view that you have, because somebody else may buy it and want to do something with it. So that's just the nature of the beast.
I'd like to say something also to this group, and well, to everyone here, is I, for one, agree with you. I think the development that happened on College Way in West Harding with that apartment building is a travesty to our city. I don't know the developer. I don't know that's not the issue. It is not a good project for our community. And I would also like to say, just so you know, I live on 300 West, and I have 3-story apartment buildings across the street on one side and 2 doors down from me on the other. I didn't like it. I've learned to live with it. I've grown a lot of trees. So I understand what you're feeling, because I live in it. So I get it.
And like Scott, I understand what you're saying. It's, but also it's really tough, like I said, for where developers come in and they follow all the ordinances and everything that we have in place, and then it makes it very difficult to say, no, you can't do that. Because if they've met all of the requirements that are currently in place, then, our city's been fortunate. We haven't ever been sued, but there's been many cities that have been sued by developers for turning down when they've met everything that's in place at the time. And as we've said all along on some of these things, as they've come forward, if you don't like what is in the ordinances, then we need to look at, making some changes, have the discussion. And, we're willing to listen to discussion. We're willing to listen to anybody. It doesn't always, we can't make everybody happy all the time. It just doesn't work. I've been at this 10.5 years, and if I can make the whole room happy with a decision, I'm going, what happened? Something must be wrong, because nobody ever agrees 100% with our decisions usually.
Right.
So,
Are
anyway.
there other comments, questions this
Well,
week?
since this is our work meeting, I just have to say this final thing. I think it's the final thing, but I struggle with the design. But if it's going to be as attractive as Mr. Fawcett says it is, And if it does come about, I'm going to hold you to it. But I want it reduced to 6 units, and I want to be sensitive to the height restrictions as well. So that's just where I'm coming from. I really struggle with that. I really do.
Thank you, Scott. I've been mulling over this question quite a bit, and I just want to ask it to you because I probably already know the answer. But with that decision that we made a year and a half ago, what happened?
Well, what happened is the property changed hands.
Sold the property.
It sold the property. It's
But
a new owners.
I would think that that would come with buying the property. This is what has settled, this is what we have settled on. We've talked to the council, they have settled on this compromise. Wouldn't that come with the property? That's just been my question for
Yeah.
a long time.
Not without a developer's agreement.
No.
Not without a developer's agreement. And we have done development agreements with developers in the past. Yeah. Well, yeah, but they didn't sign off and put that in their agreement that they would do it. It was just a verbal, and then they turned around and sold the property, so that changed the ownership. And so a new owner comes in, and it doesn't run with the property without an agreement.
No, it has
Without
to
a
be in
written
writing,
agreement.
unfortunately.
Got to have a written agreement for
Unfortunately.
it to run with the property and be legal. You know what I mean? Yeah, unfortunately, Meridon, those days are gone. We used to do everything verbally in a handshake, but I wished it was that way still, but it's not.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming and voicing your concerns. And like I said, in 2 weeks, this will be back, and Tyler will get the council that other information that you've asked for in the meantime. And this will go on the action agenda. Okay, we'll go to item number 8. Consider an ordinance amending Chapter 6 or Chapter 26 to allow additional residential uses in the INM 1 zone.
Good evening, Tom Jett, and again, happy birthday to you, Mayor. It's been almost 6 years since I saw your smiling face, and I can't believe it's been 6 years.
Been a few of these birthdays.
Yes, and for the record, Ron may not always, people may not always agree with Ron. I always agree with Ron. But 100% of the time.
Right.
And everybody else until I don't.
Please help yourself to some cookies and stuff out there for the mayor if you're
Yes,
leaving.
please take cookies.
Yeah, please.
Okay, you can continue.
A couple weeks ago, I spoke before the city council on a project that we've been working on. However, this ordinance is not just for my project. This ordinance would be citywide regarding limited housing in INM 1 zone. Last week, we weren't able to make it, but this week, we're able to present that to you now and ask for an affirmative vote on this project, not next week, but the following week.
So let me just go through some of the recommended changes if the council's in agreement with Mr. Jett's proposal. So just a first little addition that I put in right in that first paragraph under 26-3-21. Sometimes there's some confusion on what the asterisk means in the table. I just put parentheses and put the asterisk in there so it's a little more easier to see. Then if we go into that table, caretaker dwellings are currently allowed in the INM 1 and INM 2 zone, but we don't define what the caretaker dwelling is. So my proposal is that we actually define that, and then that would, assuming the council agrees, that would write it and allow caretaker dwellings in conformance with what Mr. Jett's proposing. So in the INM 1 zone, you would allow to do a caretaker dwelling as long as it's not prohibited by any airport overlay zone, as long as the residential space is only located on the second floor or the back half of the lot. Now, staff added that back half of the lot language. Mr. Jett was okay with it. As I talked about it with various people, we didn't know from the city perspective why we would care. Why it wouldn't have to be second story if someone wanted to do just one-story buildings. The space can't exceed 750 square feet, can't have more than one bedroom, and it can't be rented separately from the remainder of the dwelling. And then there's some language in there just making sure that if someone were to rent these, they would need to get a rental dwelling license from the city. In the INM2 zone, we define a caretaker dwelling different. INM2 is, our gravel pits, a little more heavy industrial. So, and Mr. Jett's not proposing residential uses in there. There aren't any residential uses allowed in there currently. So this is ideally what a caretaker dwelling unit is historically defined as. This is where someone stays there overnight to keep oversight on the building, security, maintenance, watch, so that's how we define it for that zone.
May I clarify, in a meeting that I had with Tyler, the city attorney, last Friday, Tyler brought that to my attention, the back portion of the unit. The idea behind that is so we can meet ADA requirements. If there's a person that's not able to go to the, navigate stairs, that would be available to them. That is not our intention on our particular project.
Right. I'll get on my usual song and dance here. What my concern about moving things to the back half of a lot is what surrounds that dwelling and who takes care of it. Because if these are indeed, as you say, people that have the shops or have the truck driver who's staying overnight to make his long haul the next day, is it surrounded by weeds? Is it surrounded by rock? Is it what is around that outback building?
I think I can clarify that for you, if I'm understanding correctly. This would not be a unit in the sense of back half of a lot, in the sense that it's outside the main structure, the garage. It will be the garage itself would have the unit inside of the garage, just on the back section of the garage itself.
Is that how it's written?
Yeah, so my understanding, the idea of this is the residential component is very incidental to what the main purpose is,
Right.
which would be the shop.
Right.
So we want the residence in the back part of the dwelling, so the front part is the shop.
Okay.
I guess the question is it, when it says the back of the lot,
Yeah.
And maybe,
the back of the building, or
back
the
I
of the
agree,
building or something.
maybe even that it is in the rearmost portion of the building, or something like that, where it's not dependent on the lot itself, but
That'd be better.
Are there
In
other-
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Mayor.
go ahead.
In our situation, in our particular application, there's not room for a dwelling behind it.
No, I understand.
But this is not for me, this is
Right.
No,
citywide.
if we pass this, it's citywide.
Right.
And that's why we have to look at
Yeah.
it from the whole city standpoint.
But Tyler had a good suggestion, and I hadn't even thought about people that are, that have limited mobility.
Again, my concern would be, not so much with your project, but with the citywide is, how do we enforce this? It's gonna have to be upfront when we make the final inspections on the square footage and the one bedroom and all that sort of thing. But what happens when we start getting those complaints of noise or whatever it is? Our police department's gonna have to come out and deal with it.
Scott, I wish I had an answer for you.
I wish you did too.
I mean, if I could invent a pill to cure the ills of this world, I would, but unfortunately, I'm not that smart.
Yeah.
And,
you.
but and I'm not trying to be
Maybe
evasive
the
or
man
smart.
behind you has the answers for us.
Yes.
I don't think Mr. Jett will like my answer, but Jimmy Roden with the Police Department. Chief Adams and I discussed this topic, seeing it on the agenda, and we would like the council to consider the noise complaint, just as you spoke of. for Mr. Jet's project, it may be insignificant, but when it's changed throughout the city and we have residents living in these light manufacturing areas, neighboring other light manufacturing businesses, inevitably we're going to be dealing with noise complaint issues. And so we would just ask that the council consider that. Thank you.
I think at some point we do have to hope that people do their due diligence and act like adults, and part of that is realizing that if you're going to live in an industrial zone, that there will be industrial noise. And I would be even go so far as to publicly shame those who make noise complaints in an industrial zone, because that's what it's for, and the residential would be incidental to that only.
And what Councilman Melling said is I guess is where I am. You're living in a property that's designed with a garage, and the garage is the main component. But I won't sit here and lie to you and tell you that will never happen, that a person never complains. I mean, in regular neighborhoods, if you live next to college kids, they have the boom box blasting. That throws me back old, huh? Boom box.
Yeah, I was going to be like, where have you been, Tom?
Yeah, and condominium complexes, as we get closer and closer together as a society, there's more complaints, and I would say 99% of the complaints are worked out among neighbors civilly, but there's always going to be that 1% that just is not a reasonable individual. And they may have a reason. They may have a reason if someone's lighting off dynamite in their unit. Our particular units are not. You're not allowed to make excessive noise, but
I mean, that's an INM 2 use anyway,
yeah.
right, Tyler?
But it's just.
So you're not going to get that in INM 1.
I don't have an answer, Scott, when it comes to how do we deal with that.
Okay.
Thank you. Triggered Tom, I had never asked you, but do you have, in your CCNRs, do you require some kind of landscaping or landscaping rules around them, where he brought up the weed issue?
Well,
I just thought I hadn't asked you that.
In ours, there's CCNRs, and so there's not landscaping around each unit. There's landscaping in the common area, in the corners, and in the entrance.
Yeah, I know you're doing that, but
and
I didn't know about each unit.
And so, and that will be taken care of by the owners association for our particular concept.
I had one other concern as we're going into redoing our general plan. Last week I had Kit pull up the map, and we don't have a lot of IM1 in the city right now, but we're just going into redoing the general plan, and I wondered how that might change and what other areas, if we make this citywide, what else might that incorporate? I don't know.
Well, I guess my only answer to that is if it becomes a problem, then we amend it. Sometimes we go one way and add it increased density, and sometimes say, hey, the roads in that particular area is not going to be able to handle that density, so we trim it back to 2 or 1 or R1s. So we can never make a perfect rule. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
You're right. All right, your turn.
Well, I might just be repeating a few things, but that staff's issue is enforceability. We do allow trailer parks in the INM 1 zone, but they're contained. They're all together. Whereas this could be a residence welding shop, residence paint shop. I mean, they'll be interspersed with each other. They're just kind of back to what Lieutenant Roden was saying, but that's just one of the concerns that this could produce.
Tyler, in your comment there, I didn't know, but do we have an occupancy limit?
Well, so yeah, we talked about that, but our occupancy limit currently is a family per unit, so up to 4 unrelated. And I didn't feel like legally we could go make that more stricter just in this one zone.
Okay.
And it's hard to, and it's hard and creepy.
Yeah.
Well, how do you can't enforce that?
Yeah. Now,
Can't
for
enforce that.
We have a hard enough time doing it in open neighborhoods.
for our particular project, excuse me, not for our project, for this ordinance, that's why we've limited it to 1 bedroom for that purpose, is to limit number of people.
Right.
Gosh, you could have a real busy person in there, but you know that we're
Really, Mr.
Jett? Sorry,
Understand.
spoiled your birthday, but you know.
All right, with that comment.
So like I said, I think it's a good project. You know, I've spoke to a lot of people. I believe there's a need, and a project like this is just not going to sit well where you're 90% garage and 10% house. It's just not going to sit well in an R3 neighborhood.
No.
Or an R2 or an R1 neighborhood. And so that's why we've kind of pushed this into the light industrial area where it's not going to quite go, boy, what an ugly place. Who would build 90% garage and 10% home? Well, the answer is Tom Jett. So thank you for
said
your
it,
time.
sir, I
With that,
didn't.
this
I
will
did.
go on the action agenda. Thank you, Mr. Jett. It's always a pleasure to have you. All right. Item number 9, public hearing to consider entering into a memorandum of understanding with the Cedar City chapter of the Dixie Mountain Bike Trails Association for the use of city property.
So I don't see Mr. Yuri here.
Mac's not here.
Yeah, so Mac kind of heads up the Cedar chapter of the Dixie Mountain Bike Trails Association. He approached the city several weeks ago. They would like the opportunity to add on the 13th hole trail that's located out by Thunderbird Gardens. This is just an MOU that just outlines the responsibilities with his group and the city. Essentially, we're just saying that we're going to allow you to put this trail there. You're going to have to put it in yourself. You're going to make sure it's maintained. There's no trash or debris that's kept on the trail. And if anything does go wrong, you're going to indemnify and hold the city harmless. In response, the city's going to give them the right to enter our property and build that trail, and we're going to do our best to not disturb it unless there's an emergency.
This is a mountain biking trail, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Mr. Yuri also sits on our Active Transportation Committee, and he's spoken about this, and I think it's a good project.
It's a nice connection.
Right. Are there comments, questions from the council before I open the public hearing? No? Okay, we'll open the public hearing on this item. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing on this item, and it can go on the consent if the council's all right with that. All right. Item 10, consider amending the terms of the Cedar Canyon Retreat Water Service Agreement.
I'm Jim Rushton, one of the owners of the Cedar Canyon Retreat RV Park and Campground. Sorry, I just was gonna do a little cleaning. But.
Go for it. That's why there were wipes there.
That's why they're there, buddy.
Good job.
This is for his father-in-law, who's one and done.
Especially after Mr. Jett, I don't blame you.
All right, well, so we've been talking to you before. I kind of wanted to give you an update of where we're at in the progress, and that's why we're coming. Sorry, I'm gonna have to take that down, but so the last time we were here, we talked about that we were in the process of buying some water, that we were going to drill a well to provide water for our property that sits outside of city limits, which we are currently now using a 1-inch line connection from the city. We had some water rights under contract that we were in the process of getting transferred over. The state rejected that transfer. They would not allow us to transfer the water up the canyon so we could drill the well, so we're kind of at a problem in what we were hoping we could do to mitigate that problem with water that we have. So we're coming to you now to kind of give you a little bit of information. We are kind of soft open, or we started open using the RV park Memorial Day weekend. So we've had essentially 2 months, July being probably our best month of what we are actually going to do in our high peak season usage of what that will look like. So our usage, I think, that came from Platt & Platt when they engineered the project of how much water we were going to be using or projecting that we would use was essentially about an acre foot a year, which was most months about 60,000 gallons of water, with a few in the wintertime that would have been, I think it was around 30,000 gallons of water that usage. We don't have a ton of data. We have the historical data, but we don't, looking at our project and what we've done so far, July was probably a really good, busy month of what we're going to use, and it was essentially 60,000 gallons. I don't see June maybe, August maybe will be about that, but other than that, I don't see us using 60,000 gallons.
Are you using that 1-inch line to feed a tank?
Correct, yes.
As we discussed back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is working?
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't heard anybody complaining about usage or flow up above us. That was kind of some of the concern, but we haven't heard anything about that.
Jim, would you refresh us on back when you started this, because I've forgotten exactly what happened with the city. Originally, you could have put in, or gone for the well then. I remember talked about something happening. There was communication or something between the city. And I know it was your financing too, because you talked to me about that. But you could have done it then, had you known originally to go the well route before you came in and asked.
Well, yeah,
it
might help if I give you background. So when we started the project, we were doing our due diligence, as was talked about before. I am a real estate agent, so I understand due diligence. And so we were making sure that we were doing it the proper way. And so the channels that we were going through, because we were in the county, was through the county requirements, which we did our due diligence. We followed those steps and guidelines. We actually got approval. At this point, we have approval to be a water distribution company to provide water to the public, because that's what the state required through our conditional use permit and the process. So we did that, and now, but at the time, we were just following what we were supposed to do, and one of those steps was to get a letter from the city stating that 1-inch line was sufficient for the project that we were doing. We got a letter from the city that the way we read that was, yes, you're good to move forward because you have approval you have that water. City staff kind of interprets that letter different than we do. And so there was a letter that was issued that said that we were not following the city guidelines on that. And so so at that point, that's when we came to city council and said, hey, we want to make sure we're doing this properly. But had we known that we had a problem before, we could have tried to put that in our loan.
We did have a building permit based on that letter.
Right. Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted you to.
And so, just to kind of clarify, so where we're at now is, a few months ago, we said, you got 2 years to figure out your water, get a well. In the meantime, you're good with city water. And now the well isn't as much of an option because of the portability issue. I guess what I would kind of be inclined to explore is if, as long as the city is not out a whole lot more water than what it was originally doing with the one residence, then I don't see it impacting the city too much, especially, where it's not like we put in a new water system there. So I would be inclined to see if we could, instead of that 2-year limit, if we could just commit to providing that on an ongoing basis if they bring valley water rights that the city can use to the table. If the portability is the issue, the city can use valley water rights, and 1 acre foot is a whole lot cheaper than drilling a well anyway. Anyway, I'd like to explore something like that. I don't know where the rest of the council would be on that.
Are you paying residential rates?
I talked to Tyler about this and asked what that was, and it sounded like there's not a different rate, or is there a different rate?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
We'd have to double check that. I can't remember either. But.
So.
Okay.
I can pull your water records and find out what you're paying, if it's residential or commercial.
And is there a difference?
The commercial would be cheaper for that kind of volume.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Jim, do you know why the state engineer, water engineer denied you?
So, yeah, I guess the answer is no, I don't know exactly why, but in the conversation was we were taking water from the valley and taking it up the Coal Creek, and so it would...
Be in the same drainage.
Yeah.
Well, it is the same drainage, but it was impacting what would feed to Coal Creek and possibly the Virgin River, which is odd, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't like
So,
to do that.
that's what...
We should say additionally that Jim did exploratory with neighbors above us, and I think Las Vegas was the owner of most of that, and not interested in selling, and not ever.
Yeah, so, that, we could, if we could find water up higher to bring down to us, that would be okay. Well, might be okay. They wouldn't guarantee that transfer, but that could be a possibility. But I did explore and try to find who owned water above us, and no one was interested in selling. They would love to buy more, but they wouldn't sell.
None of those homes around there have a well, do they? Do you know?
I think the city might own the only wells. I don't know. I don't know
either. I was just curious.
When I did I don't remember. I'm sorry. I don't think there were any wells that were privately owned.
Okay.
Jim, when I drove up there and drove around it on the July 24th weekend, it was packed.
Yeah.
It was packed.
Well, and so we were...
And every car I saw was a Nevada license plate.
And we were using a lot of water then, and I'm sure the city was enjoying some tax revenue from the restaurants and usage.
Hope so.
Yeah.
So when Jim and I met and Mr. Bittman was there, we talked about a few options that the council could consider. One was what Mr. Melling suggested, have him bring in 1 or 2 acre feet of water to the city, allow that connection to remain. Another option we talked about is instead of having it to be 2 years, maybe extend it to 4, and give him more time to try to find a water right that's upstream to be able to dig that well. I think those were essentially the 2 things we talked about.
And we'd love to own a well up there, but and the time might be nice, but I don't know that we'd find it, but yeah.
So is there a direction the council would like?
Well, I just want to make sure that if we do this, that we negotiate something that is also to the benefit of the city in exchange for this water, if that's the direction we go. And maybe it is that exchange of some other water from some other source.
We did leave a lot of trees when we built the RV park.
That's a good start. That's a good start.
Oh, man, pandering to Phil.
Oh, my goodness. All right.
Are they natural? You don't have
Yeah, are they those juniper water sucking trees?
Someday you're going to love me.
Okay, so this will go on the action agenda, but you have a direction for Tyler to have something prepared for you. Would you like to think about it?
I don't know where the rest of the council is, but so I would be inclined to look at, it's been a while since I looked at the papers, but there's kind of a state calculation for how much water they are considered to be using as an RV park, and just check whether or not that's close to actual use, and I would just, as long as they bring in that equivalent amount of acre feet of water to the city to offset its usage, I'd be inclined to just do something like that and make that a permanent agreement. I don't know how the rest of the council feels.
Of course, we've only got about 2 months to gauge that off of. I mean, we don't know what they're...
Right now,
Do
we
you want
probably...
to kind of think about some of these different options that have now been presented, and you can email Tyler?
Was there not a question on whether that 2-inch line was really sufficient to handle any more water? I know we made an agreement with you guys,
The
you'd
1
fill up
inch.
during the, off hours and whatnot, but that's not really a permanent
Yeah,
kind of arrangement, so
I don't think that agreement was ever because it didn't happen, that finalized that agreement, but.
Right, I mean, just a verbal that, would you guys try and be mindful of everybody that was up from you, and if we make this permanent, is that a problem for those other residents?
If this is a permanent agreement, we could still agree on that language, saying they can only fill that tank during non-peak hours, and that would help neighboring uses.
I believe that would be smart on our part.
How big is the tank again?
12,000 gallons.
So that's even at your peak usage, about 6 days worth at a time. So yeah, that makes sense. So there, if you're only filling up during the night or whenever that would be, it's not gonna be a problem one day at a time. Unless you got someone filling up a pool in your park or something like that, but.
The only water problem we had was the city had a major leak across the way that we thought was ours, and we identified it was actually the city's leak, so. But this actually, on the peak day, when you said it was full, we've had no problems with the water pressure or the water supply, so we're very
And
confident.
none of your neighbors seem to either,
We've,
that you know of?
nobody's complained to us or the city.
I'm not aware of any complaints.
So we'll put this on the action agenda.
All right, can you just double check with the water department too, and make sure that they don't foresee some issue if we moved forward and made that a permanent?
Sure.
Yeah.
And we definitely would like to remind the water department that we did help them save that leak. There was probably more water than we're using, so.
Yeah. So Tyler, consider the time frame element too, where I know we have 2 years in there, but, so you have plenty of time to go try and find some more water too, if we're running up against that, as long as you're putting something together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to our staff portion with item number 11. Consider an interlocal agreement between Cedar City Redevelopment Agency and Cedar City for the Decor Works project within the Coal Creek Community Reinvestment Project area. Thank you for that title.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Probably remember a discussion
haven't
about
said
this.
your
Oh,
name.
I'm so sorry. I haven't thought about that before.
I know.
Danny Stewart with Economic Development. Bringing back an item that we discussed a few years ago in the discussion of creating a local economic development incentive for Decor Works as they were considering their future here in Cedar City or elsewhere. And at that time, we talked about putting together a local tax increment incentive with them through the redevelopment agency. In the process of doing that, we created a project area where those types of incentives can take place, and found that we had some language in agreement with our incentives program that really limited local incentives to larger manufacturing type projects and not to something similar to Decor Works. So it slowed down this process, put the brakes on this project. It gave our Economic Development Committee cause and opportunity to create a matrix to help us with the design of local incentives. So, I mean, really this was a difficult thing for this particular project, but in the long run it helped my department to create a tool that we can use moving forward for incentives. So what we're asking for this evening is that Cedar City, as a taxing entity in the county, enter into an agreement with the redevelopment agency to surrender a portion of new tax increment that is generated by the improvement of the Decor Works building to go back towards the development of that project. Usually these are done ahead of time, but just the way circumstances worked out, this is present time, so they've been in that building about 2.5 years without this incentive, but with the understanding that we would work through this process that was part of the negotiations of keeping DecorWorks as part of our community. I don't
Danny,
know
have
what
they,
questions you
have they met the requirements that we had for this incentive?
Yes.
Relative to jobs and pay and those kinds of things?
Right, and the matrix was created to do that, so we don't have the exact requirements that they had at the time, which was 25 new jobs that would pay at least 125% of the average county wage. I said that's a difficult task for a small business to meet that. That was basically our only requirement at the time. So the matrix that we built with the help of EDC Utah, Economic Development Corporation of Utah, is to look at the types of things that make sense in our community and to consider more things than strictly job creation. So we consider the fact, what is a capital investment in a project? What is the number of jobs created? What's the level of pay for those jobs? How does a project fit in the community? Does it do anything to improve the status of a historically significant building, which played into the role of this? And also, does it tax or does it cause any sort of harm to our resources? Is it a huge water user or something like that? So in the past, when incentives have been put together, they've kind of been done shooting from the hip, based on things that have been done in the past. This incentives tool that we put together takes all of those criteria and puts them into a formula that says, based on capital investment, number of jobs, and these other things that I mentioned, it gives a recommendation for a starting point of what a percentage should be for an incentive and what the time frame should be for that incentive. So, depending on how you plug things into this matrix, something may come up and say this project does not merit anything, and it may come up and say this project merits 80% for 15 years, or whatever it might be, anywhere in lines with that matrix. When we plugged in the criteria for the DecorWorks project, it came out at 78% for 8 years. For the patience demonstrated by DecorWorks, we bumped that up 1 percentage point for 1 additional year.
So if we're asked to look at some of the new market monies generated by the RDA, how do we know, based on that percentage and that matrix, what we're talking about allocations for the company?
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out dollar amounts here.
Yeah, and
you
I've got
business people are
those.
a lot smarter about this than me. I'm just...
It's a lot of voodoo and witchcraft that goes into this, but basically that property, we'll just take DecorWorks as an example. That property as it was, as an abandoned bus garage,
right,
was still generating a certain amount of property tax. The base level for that, it was actually the valuation of the property at the time, according to the county, was $616,040. DecorWorks came in and invested funding into the building itself and into new equipment, which changed the appraised valuation to $2,447,885. So the new increment above that old base was $1,831,845. So that's the amount, that new increment is the amount that can be bargained with Cedar City and the other taxing entities in the county to be able to use percentages for a certain amount of time. And those can be used for anything. They can be used specifically for infrastructure. They can be used to go back to the developer. This being a CRA, a community reinvestment area project, there's a mandated 10% that goes to affordable housing. So there will be a portion of this off of that 79%, 10% of that will go to affordable housing. The remainder of that would go to DecorWorks. So
And just so it's clear, affordable housing is the housing authority that's run by Heidi.
right. In a lot of communities, they don't have a housing authority for affordable housing, so that goes to a statewide, the Olene Walker Housing Fund. we're fortunate in this case that we have a local housing authority that can benefit from those funds anytime we create that.
And is that a percentage of all of the taxing entities? So they all have to come to the table, like the Water Conservancy and the school district and whatnot?
Yeah,
It's
so-
not just the city portion, correct?
Right. So today I'm on City Council agenda, tomorrow will be Conservancy District, Monday will be County Commission, and Tuesday will be the school district, and we'll all be looking at this item. Just so you're aware, the city's split on this for the year 2020, and these values are estimated, but these are very current. I got these from Dan Jessen at the county. So the city in this case would give up $3,823 a year for this incentive. So that would be our taxing entity's portion of that, just under $4,000.
For 8 years.
Every year, and it's for 9 years.
9 years.
Yeah,
Will
that's.
that include the retroactive 2.5 years?
No,
All prospective.
it is. It can only, the county can't go back and take that from prior years, so they have to start for tax year 2020. So Decor Works would be able to send us a request for that increment, and the Housing Authority would get theirs after January 1 of 2021. Based on this tax year. And they have requirements. They have to, of course, pay their taxes in the first place to get that refund. I mean, this funding comes directly from their property tax. It's not funding that's coming from any other taxpayer's pocket. It's just a refund back to them for their investment.
Yeah. Thank you.
Additional comments, questions? Are we good with this going on the consent?
Yes, this is long awaited and a wonderful result.
Glad to get her done.
Thank you for all of your hard work on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danny.
All right. Item number 12, consider approval to sign AIP 036 federal grant for the airport.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're here tonight.
You still have to say your name too.
Yep. Nick Holt, Airport Manager.
There we go.
Should be used to that by now. So tonight we're coming with for AIP 36 grant. Back in February, we sought your permission to submit an application for this grant. The FAA has been a little bit slower this year to fund these grants, and so now we're getting right up to the deadline of when we've got to get our grant back to them, but I haven't received the grant. So tonight I have a draft grant that, with all the language that the grant, when it is issued, will have in it, including the dollar amount of $1,270,000. With the pandemic this year, the FAA is offering the grant at 100% federal to 0% local match, which is nice. With this grant, we plan to reconstruct Taxiway Charlie and Charlie 1 intersection. This pavement's over 50 years old. We will also do some pavement maintenance or management on our helipad. It will consist of crack seal and seal coat and a fresh paint. And then also this grant will allow us to fund our rotating beacon reimbursement.
And this won't interfere with any of our current runway operations during this process of doing these projects?
It won't, it will impact our crosswind runway. Our main runway will remain open. I was hoping to have this grant back earlier in the season to where we could have tied it into our original project, but that didn't happen.
Right.
I anticipate to have this grant hopefully by the end of the month. I have a deadline to have that back to them by September 11th, because they've got to have some time. They've got a couple weeks that they have to process it and do things on their end. So
given the timing, are you saying that we need to approve this immediately, or?
No, I would need your approval by, is it September 2nd?
Okay.
Would allow me enough time to get a signature and return it to the FAA.
And maybe you'll have the real grant by then?
Yep.
Maybe.
All right. We good with this on consent?
We hope so.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
I like
you.
100%.
Item number 13, consider purchase of a mini loader.
Wait
Wade Orem, Parks Division Head.
Good job.
Happy birthday, Mayor. So, we are in need. We are planning on surplusing a backhoe that has been handed down to us from the Streets Department. I don't know how old it is. It's not in our records for the date, so it's pretty old. I do know we've put a lot of money into it in the 3 years I've been here, and I'm tired of fixing it. So, we'd like your permission to surplus that, and with that also purchase this mini loader that would replace that. The backhoe, for the most part, was used as a loader to move wood chips, other gravel material like that. This small mini loader would do the same thing, plus it gives us the option to do more things for roughly the same price as purchasing a new backhoe. It gives us the opportunity to change out banners a little safer year-round. Right now, the way we do it, if there's piles of snow on the ground, we wouldn't be able to do it with the lifts that we rent. A number of other things. It gives us the opportunity to expand as we go in the future. It has lots of options for new attachments and things like that would, again, make our labor more efficient. So,
What's the delivery time on this, Wade?
it would be probably at least 4 weeks, maybe a little longer. So it would come from the factory. So it's not one. It's the cab. It has cabs and everything, and so there's kind of a special order thing.
All budgeted?
Yes.
So we're good within those parameters?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
We good with this going on consent?
Yep.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right.
Wade.
Consider amending Chapter 25 of the city's ordinances dealing with nuisances.
So, it's probably been a month, maybe a little longer.
A little longer.
Yeah, I was just trying to give myself a little benefit of the doubt. So a little over a month ago, I met with Councilwoman Hartley and Councilman Phillips, and we talked about, along with the police department, we talked about some various changes to the city's nuisance ordinance. The crux of the conversation was we wanted to have this be a little more friendly user for the city, so we could get results a little quicker than what we were getting with some of the nuisances in town. So how the ordinance currently reads is our code enforcement officer who's over nuisances, he's supposed to really take an approach of trying to get voluntary correction done with the citizens. And that's a shall. So he has to do that every time. Even if he shows up and knows there's no way this person's going to clean this up, or this is beyond what this person can means they may have to be able to clean up this nuisance. He's still required to do that. And then there's an agreement put in place, and it gives him, I can't remember if it was 14 or 30 days. And then there's extensions, and it really pushes this thing out. So in our discussion, we still want that to be the option. We hope we can use that option every time with our citizens, but we didn't want to make it to be a shall. It's a may now, so it gives our code enforcement officer the ability to show up and be able to really assess the situation and say, yes, this is something we can work out amongst ourselves, or no, we're just going to cite you, whether civilly or criminally, and we'll take care of it in that manner. So I'll just quickly, as quickly as I can, but make sure I inform the public of what some of these changes are. So we identify the code enforcement officer originally as a neighborhood preservation officer. Well, that position doesn't exist, so we changed that to code enforcement officer. There are a few definitions because of the amendments that we struck out, like we no longer would require a corrective action, so some of those definitions have been removed. We then get into the noxious weeds section. So we made I clarified this so we knew what we could enforce. And then in your memo, I put can instead of cannot. So for noxious weeds, they apply to subdivided lots with vertical infrastructure. So if there's vertical infrastructure, then that's when this kicks in. If it's an undeveloped lot, then these noxious weeds can exist. And noxious weeds is defined by Utah Administrative Code. It's also defined by the city as 12 inches in height or higher. Improper accumulations, we clarified that, saying that they can occur on an undeveloped lot. So even though there's no vertical infrastructure, if you pile your garbage and junk, that's still counted as a nuisance. You have to go in and clean that up. That's the same thing for another definition which deals with the accumulation of junk. The next major section, we get into the finding of a nuisance. So we struck a lot of this out just to make it a little more clear that if the officer has probable cause to believe a nuisance exists, then that means he can do something. He needs to give them written notice, and the written notice needs to identify the person who's responsible. It needs to describe the property, describe the nuisance that's on the property, and then request that the responsible person abate the nuisance within 14 days. Now that's according to state law, and the reason why we put that in there is if we hit those notice requirements, if the city has to expend funds to clean that up, we can obviously go after the responsibility for reimbursement. But if we can't get that, we can then go to the county assessor's office and get those costs assessed with their property taxes. So we can get it through that avenue as well. It's just a little cleaner than going through the courts.
Mhm.
The next section we get into is different remedies to abate the nuisance. So all of these remedies, we could use one or multiple as we go through it. The first is the voluntary correction. Again, this is what we hope we can accomplish every time. It gives them 10 days to be able to abate the nuisance, and then they're required, if need be, the responsible person can ask for an extension of 7 days. That would need to be approved by the code enforcement officer and their sergeant. The second option would be a criminal citation. This is highly correlated to state law, so as state law may change on what's criminal, so would our ordinance. I've been talking with Randall McCune, who does our criminal prosecutions for the city. We're going to treat this like we would like failure to get a business license. We may cite you and we may file something in court, but the second you abate the nuisance or you get your business license, we dismiss it. We're not going to move forward with it. So again, just kind of a heavy-handed stick to get people's attention and in hopes that we can dismiss the charges. The third option is we can do the abatement by the city itself. I'm working with Sergeant Pollock on one of these issues right now on a lot west of town that has accumulated a bunch of junk. We reached an agreement with the property owner. The city's going to go in and remove it, and they're going to refund us for our costs, and we got those costs actually up front from them. We have a boilerplate agreement in place, so that can be used in the future. The fourth option would be to civil action, which would be a filing in the court, and then the last would be abatement by eviction. So there are some nuisances like prostitution houses or drug houses, gang houses. Those nuisances, we actually have the legal ability to evict people from those properties. I've never seen that used. I don't think Cedar City's ever done it, but that is an option that we kept on the books. The remainder of the changes really just kind of simplifies the appeal process. The person who may be given notice of a nuisance has the right to appeal that to the city manager and be able to work through that process so that you have some due process rights on whether it's actual a nuisance or not.
Right.
I think one of the things that I was looking at as when we approach this, and I appreciate all of Tyler's work on this, as well as the cooperation of our police department on this, is we did have some deadlines in the old ordinance that allowed you 30 days, and then if that didn't happen, then you got a second notice on it, which was another 30 days before action was taken. So 60 days had gone by, nearly 2 months of a summer before anything could happen. And I really appreciate the fact that it's down to 14 days now, and the fact that we can write written notifications on it immediately. So I think it's a great step in the right direction.
Just really quick, so Mr. Phillips called me earlier today. He asked about a definition for graffiti. We list that in the ordinance, we don't define it. I pulled some state law. I'll include that in the revision for next week.
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, sorry. And then we also had a discussion about the definition of a family.
Right.
that's different than how we would define it in like our building code. So my suggestion is we just strike that and remain consistent with that one definition. And in fact, I don't think the definition in here is probably perfectly legal either. It's more restrictive.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Yeah, I had the same thoughts when I saw that. And, oh, we're still in the business of defining families, and that's dangerous territory these days. I had a few comments as well. So I do appreciate the more clarified definition of noxious weeds, because that does have a different connotation as well at the state level, and so I appreciate that clarification. And the accumulation of junk, I think those changes are appropriate, as well as the shortened timeline for addressing some of these problems, especially if weed abatement is in the name of fire suppression. If it's truly a public safety hazard, it's maybe not something you want to let go 60 to 90 days. So I do appreciate that aspect. I do have a few serious concerns as well. The one is the criminal citation element. I would like to see if maybe we could tie the city's hands a little more to ensure that it's only as a last resort. I know the state legislature did that to some extent. I know that far more people's lives have been ruined due to overzealous enforcement of criminal codes than by weeds in their neighbor's yard. So I would like to see, especially in America where we're having riots over criminalization of offenses, I would just like to tie the city's hands a little more as far as ensuring that that's a last resort. With the weed abatement, I do not want to become Roy City, where grandma is getting Class B misdemeanor because her dandelions in her yard are out of control. And so I don't know the best way to deal with you're trying to balance with some of these rentals. If you have an absentee landlord, they're not subject to the same social pressures or shaming or anything like that to keep their yards looking nice, but for the old widow who's having trouble keeping up with her yard work, we want to be careful there too. So in other areas of our code, whether in discussion or actually in the code, we've looked at owner occupancy as a metric, and I wonder if perhaps with some of these things we could take a more serious look at owner occupancy with some of these with the weed abatement and things like that, whether it's a slightly extended timeline or a slightly relaxed standard, just because I once again do not want to be Roy City and the Salt Lake Tribune being lambasted for giving grandma a criminal record for the weeds in her yard. And then another concern is how the city manages its own property. And this is, not anything against our staff, but I think it's more of an allocation of resources issue. We many times have had complaints from citizens that our city property, city-owned, is not well maintained. We did our June council walk along the railroad tracks. There were many residents there that have expressed concerns about the city's overgrown grasses in that area where they own that property. And yes, I realize we're going to eventually develop that into a walking trail, but it's a fire hazard for them. And so when I've brought up the weed abatement issue to others, one of the top responses is, well, as long as I get to go in and improve maintain the city's weeds and then send them an invoice, I'm okay with that. And so I do not want the city to be, I want to ensure that the city is above reproach. So if we do demand a higher standard from our citizens, I think we need to, whether through increased budgeting, through contracts or personnel or equipment, ensure that city property is above reproach and that we're meeting all the standards that we're expecting of our citizens. And then finally, I don't know the best way to deal with this, with noise. Just like I said I would, I'm not okay with noise complaints in industrial. I do realize as well that residential is a place of quiet hours, and I don't know if, while we're reviewing this, if there's a better way to define some of these noise issues. I know they're very hard to enforce compared to some of the other things that are easier to gather evidence, but I would like to maybe take a closer look at that at least and see what we could do.
Are there any other council comments? All right, yes.
I didn't say happy birthday before. I'm going to see Wear the Crown.
I have pictures of it
Okay.
after the meeting.
Okay. Laura Henderson, Cedar City resident. So I guess Tyler just touched on one of the things that I was wondering about too, is a noise ordinance, and how, if or when that might ever come up, because there's issues of noise, and I appreciate that large chunks of the ordinance were removed, because it seemed like it was just like dragging things out, dragging and dragging. But I'm concerned about, if something doesn't happen on a regular basis regarding noise, sometimes it says in the ordinance it must affect 3 or more people, but not to the same degree. And then sometimes it says if it affects a person's repose, and that's one person. So it's it varies throughout the ordinance. So I didn't know, because what are you going to call your neighbor and say, is this bugging you? If you and your husband are trying to get to sleep and there's noise, and the other thing is enforcement. Right now we have, we have one code enforcement officer who's kind of stretched very thin, so it can often be hard to get him to be everywhere at once. And his hours are like 9 to 5. So after 5 p.m., we have to call the police department, and then they have to, kind of reallocate their resources. So again, I didn't know if a set noise time frame was appropriate. I'm not sure. Just kind of a question regarding that.
This is when I received your text today. I did receive it. I just didn't want to respond because I knew we'd be talking about this evening. My fellow council members don't know yet, but I've been working on a noise ordinance that I want to present to Mr. Romerald for him to consider, because it's a whole separate noise issue. There's more than just party houses.
Right.
And I've been looking around the country at different communities and how they deal with noise. Some of them much more strict than others, and it's not a secret. A lot of cities have them, a lot of cities don't have them. But I didn't include that in here because I'm hoping that down the road we can actually look at noise as a whole separate issue. As our city continues to grow and grow and grow, it's become very paramount with traffic and roads and all kinds of issues that noise is a problem.
Of course.
Now, that's just me speaking, and it's just sitting there in this draft situation on my computer because I'm still trying to deal with some issues to get it to the real people that know what they're doing about it.
Right. It's just kind of in there. It's kind of tucked in there in different places in different ways.
Sure. Well,
so
noise can be a nuisance, obviously.
Well, in the way it's kind of had to be dealt with, it's if it bugs 3 or more people, or
That definition is for nuisances in general, not just for noise. And those various definitions, they all just came from state law.
Right. Well,
so
I didn't know.
how we deal with noise, it's under the inappropriate conduct section, and it's just defined as creating unreasonable noise which disturbs others.
Right. I saw that.
Very broad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. Yeah, it's kind of, yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Henderson, Cedar City resident. So this is, I don't know the exact street, okay? The dealership that's on Main, just north of the Chevron station, and the credit union, Mountain Credit Union, is on Main, and then that little side street. The street doesn't go very far, but it goes back toward a monument that is dedicated to armed forces. But on the right corner behind the dealership, there are weeds that are this tall, and there's junk cars there, and it's disgraceful for the city to have that near a war memorial, because people want to see those war memorials. And they're thinking, gosh, can't somebody clean this up? There's 3 junk cars there all the time, and 2 of them are covered with weeds, so you can barely even see them. I wish, if it's code enforcement, I wish they would go talk to these people, because 5-foot weeds is ridiculous. And it's not a small lot either. But these junk cars are there all the time. And you probably know who owns the property.
I do know who owns the property, and Lieutenant Roden, I'm going to ask you to look into it. Bradshaw Chevrolet owns the property.
They're writing a note right now.
It's terrible.
I agree. No, I'm not arguing with you. I agree.
Okay.
They need to take care of their own property.
Because it's near the war memorial.
Well, regardless, it's...
Right, regardless.
They're
Okay,
very high.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This will go on the action agenda. Item number 15, public hearing to receive comments related to Cedar City's application to the Permanent Community Impact Fund Board for Recreation Center funding.
So, the CIB board has very specific requirements in order to apply for their funding. And one of those requirements is to have a public hearing. We held a public hearing on July 15th. But with that public hearing, the item before it dealt with possible budget for this aquatic center. And the discussion we had about this possible CIB funding came under that agenda item, even though it was the very next one. So in looking at it, the CIB would like us to readdress it under the proper agenda item. So I will
Want me to open the public hearing before you read that?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Or do you want to read it and then we'll open the public hearing? I want to make sure we get this one in the right order.
Correct. So Cedar City is proposing to add on to its existing aquatic center. The proposed addition of a child care area and a recreational center will complete the original design of the building. The child care area is approximately 2,250 square feet. The recreational center will have a main level and a mezzanine level. The main level is approximately 32,760 square feet. The mezzanine level is approximately 15,538 square feet. The total project cost is estimated to be $6.2 million. The proposed funding for this project is a combination of a loan from either the Community Impact Board or seeking funding on the open market. The Community Impact Board offers competitive interest rates and loan terms. Cedar City has had positive experience in refinancing debt over the past year with the private market, where we have locked in rates as low as 1.1%. Either the Community Impact Bond or the private market will be good options for project funding. Cedar City can reduce the total amount of loan by using some of its capital reserve funding. The amount of capital funding available is not yet known, as our finance offices are closing out the last fiscal year. In the near future, staff will make a presentation to the City Council with a request for capital funding. The capital funding will reduce the total loan the city will need in order to build the additions to the aquatic center. Future repayment of the loan will not come through property taxes. The city is not seeking a general obligation bond. Recently, Cedar City retired approximately $990,000 in yearly payments for the debt obligation on the Heritage Theater. This debt service was paid through the sales tax revenues. The anticipated repayment amount on a $6.2 million loan is substantially less than the debt service on the Heritage Center. Cedar City has capacity to repay the debt without special assessments or property tax revenue. The current proposal is to include the use of the recreation center with the family pass rates and daily user rates charged for the aquatic center. City staff anticipates the additional amenities in the facility will attract additional use and increase the revenue generated by the facility. The proposed cost to operate and maintain the facility and proposed operational revenue were discussed in public during the City Council's July 15, 2020 meeting. The presentation from that meeting is available for public review through the city's webpage, either by reviewing the minutes or by watching the streaming video from the meeting. The meeting itself, for the public who would like to research it and find it, again, you go to the cedarcity.org. You would scroll down halfway through the page, and there's a Watch City Council on YouTube button. Below that, it says Watch Now. You would click on that. You would then search for the meeting that's identified as July 15th. It's 3 hours, 19 minutes, and 2 seconds long. At the 2nd hour and the 7th minute is when that discussion begins, and it ends at the 3rd hour and 11th minute.
Which we are approaching.
All right, and so with this, we will open the public hearing.
Laura Henderson. Quick question. You said the funding is unknown right now because it's closed out for...
Yeah, so when it comes to available general
Capital.
capital fund,
Mm-hmm.
that is unclear how much is in there until we get through our
Audit.
Year-end close and
year-end audit.
I see. So, it's unknown how much money we would get, that we wouldn't have to pay the 6.2 million in total.
Right, it's unknown how much we have in that fund that would
Right.
offset the total loan.
6.2, yeah.
Should the council choose to use those funds.
So my understanding is, sorry, go ahead.
you go
No,
ahead.
you go ahead.
Laura, I think where some of the confusion, we're not approving financing.
I understood that.
We're just approving for the application.
Sure, I read
process.
that. I
It's
got
just
that.
one more step.
Yeah, I
so,
got that.
Yeah.
As far
I mean, we can't know what we don't know. I mean,
Right.
the fiscal
I'm just
year just
clarifying.
ended
Yes. Yeah,
like
I'm just
3 weeks
clarifying.
ago.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes, it's.
so that's why it's not unusual that we don't know. We just
Right,
barely
I'm
ended
just
it.
clarifying. It's not that I didn't understand, I'm just clarifying the
Yes, you
the
are
whole-
correct that
Yeah.
we don't have the exact amount
Yes.
of what we have transferred over to the capital account and all of that
Right.
until we have the audit
Right,
completed and presented back
that's
before
what I
the
was,
council.
yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. Any other public comments? Okay, we will close the public hearing on this, and no action is needed. We just needed a public hearing. And so with that, Councilman Isom.
I move that we adjourn this meeting so that we can go into a redevelopment agency meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Yeah, you just have to do your thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I figured it would. We had a few things on there that'd be a bit, bit of time. Yeah. No, I figured it.
Well, I mean, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
You were the one, so you called me. I tried to call it back.
Yeah, no, totally fine, man. I just wanted to, next meeting.
No, I love running around.
Whatever works for you, man.
You go back and forth, yeah. Right.
Hey, Mel, found out something interesting the other day.
What'd you find out?
You were married to old farmer McDonald. McDonald, the farmer.
I know exactly the owner.
He needs an EIEIO form.
They own that.
That was my son-in-law that shouted at him.
We've got to get to the bottom.
That's my son-in-law that shouted it out. He's married to our daughter. Yeah, that was funny. That was funny. I know he does. He knows him. That was funny. Yeah, it's all well. Gotta have a little humor.
You're coming this way.
Dodgy, duplexy places, yeah? Probably. Is it on the corner? Yeah. I talked to the police about that 2 days ago. Yeah, that's stop signs.
So you know the school, they redid it. It's
North Elementary. North Elementary.
Right. So not that street, but the street to the east.
Okay.
We made a right.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Probably about 500 or 400. I'm not sure.
Can I get
Jonathan,
those names?
thank you.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
If you
okay.
got a picture or a list or send it an email or whatever's going to be
Total
easiest.
disgrace to the neighborhood.
Each one of those maps, the zoning map has the dates that they were effective on. So you can just take pictures in there whenever they get that creased enough, so. Then the council minutes are the last page.
Okay. I'm trying. But I'm not going to stop trying. I'm not going to stop trying. So I appreciate it. And no, just keep bringing it to our attention. Just keep bringing it to our attention. That's what we got to do. That's what we got to do. And we made a deal that we're going to try making some changes to the nuisance ordinance because we asked for a code enforcement officer and they said we have to do that this year. Jonathan, thank you.
Yeah, no, if there's a way, no, thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know if there's a way we could meet just to briefly talk about it in the future. If that would work for you, or
Sure.
you just tell me a date and time.
Well, it has to be this week or I'm gone all of next week.
Okay.
But after that, I'm back. But that only gives us a couple of days before the meeting.
Yeah, and I won't be there for that meeting.
Okay.
Can I interject?
I could certainly get with you tomorrow or Friday afternoon before 4.
I can do any time tomorrow after 4 o'clock.
Tomorrow after 4? Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's not really my
Do you want these flower petals, Mr. Phillips?
But if they cut down on the property and put one level underground,
I'm cleaning up this much. The outside stuff I'm gonna clean up tomorrow.
All right. If you want to take this home for your daughter, you're
Yeah, we'll meet
welcome.
here now.
it's just, I know what you're saying.
All of the
3
random
stories is
stuff that she is gonna get
outrageous.
from,
Especially, nobody wants to look at
it's
that.
amazing anymore.
It
All
is.
of my
I feel bad for the people who have to look
See-
at it when it's
and any carpet.
But if they cut down and put a level underground,
Yeah,
I
there
know
you
it's
go.
expensive to go
Sounds
underground.
pretty normal.
It's certainly a compromise, but then they won't want to build that because it's too much money.
Yeah.
Cool.
That
Once you
building to the
find it, your
north,
first Christmas
I know
is,
the one, you know, the blue one.
she'll be more enamored with the boxes than the
terrible.
toys.
The 4-story.
Why did,
It's terrible.
why did
That
they put
building
the
is
back of that
boxes.
thing
Oh,
to
it's
the
atrocious.
street? It's ugly. We've said that all along.
They did it because it was the cheapest way to do it.
Yeah. We haven't liked that one either, but
Hey, thank you guys. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
we'll see what we can do.
If they had, you don't have to build them all the way around.
No. Well, and they can do more staggering. But see, all we have is a vicinity plan. It's so
How
hard
do
to
I
see what
block
it is.
someone
You can't
sending me
tell
a
what it is.
text?
Just looking at the vicinity.
Down.
How do you block a text?
What, just throwing all that good stuff away?
How to do that?
I'm just kidding.
Yes, I am sorry.
You know,
I don't know, but I have to go to the restroom real quick.
I had this on earlier.
I sat here long enough.
I couldn't go anymore. I had to jump
got it.
out on the
I got it.
news.
Okay,
So how do you block a
I'm
text?
expecting like,
2 seconds.
Yeah, it's texting.
I have an hour speech prepared for it. You want me to give you that? You know that's a lie. I'm, let's see, I'm 33 minutes away from SEAL team, Mayor.
Phone now.
I'm as anxious to get out of here as anybody.
There you go.
Block this caller. Yeah, okay.
I use it on calls.
Yeah, I mean, I get this random text from.
I'm doing that. No, we're good. No, you just have to save the minutes and then we can keep going. Well, it is. It's we have 5 minutes. This was so fun. This was so fun. Take these home and then McKinley just drop them over top of her. She would love it. Yeah, but I don't want to get it all over my house.
Was that right?
You know, my gargantuan townhouse.
What do you think, Ron?
Oh, boy.
Want to take these home?
What?
Run them over the house for Michael?
I think you should put them in Scott's bed.
Those fishing expeditions.
I think you should put them in Scott's bed.
You want Scott's bed? You want to take the pedals home? Sprinkle them all over your bed?
No, thanks. No, thanks.
I think we should sneak in there and put them there.
All the rest of the stuff we might clean up tomorrow. Oh, yeah, let's do that. That's my view.
You can leave it out.
The rest of the stuff we can clean up tomorrow.
Oh. I should have gone out there and got a cookie.
What?
I said I should have gone out there and got something. I thought we were ready to go. I'm ready to get out of here.
Well,
Running low
this
in
new system just takes so long.
I'm running low in the sugar department, I can tell.
Yeah.
I don't want to fall on my face going to my truck.
You want me to get you a cookie? There's an oatmeal one.
Not quite that bad yet.
I took oatmeal because it has some nutritional value.
Yeah, we have
I
food
should
out
have.
there, don't we?
I forgot to bring a granola bar or something. I usually do. I know we're going to be this long.
There's chocolate chip. You can have chocolate chip. That'll give you some nice sugar.
Boy, I'll just,
Hey, Miley.
It is so much cooler in the
Madam Mayor? Mayor?
Yeah, this is
Mayor.
really...
Oh, Tyler, somebody, bring in a couple of chocolate chip cookies.
That's what you wanted?
are they wrapped up?
Hey, I'm having one of the oatmeal ones for dinner.
Bring a bunch of them.
That's what I said. It has
I
some
figured that
nutritional
was-
value.
No, they're for him.
I'll have one.
They're for him.
Okay. Are we safe?
No, I don't.
Thanks, Tyler.
Well, I was thinking of Ron or whoever else.
And myself, okay.
There's lots of them out there.
You can eat them. I just
later.
need one. I was going to go out and get one. I forgot. I thought we were going to be getting this meeting going quicker.
Oh, wow, look.
Have visitors.
Well, I guess we're
We
not
have
at the meeting
visitors.
right now.
Yeah.
Hi, Pumpkin. That just dropped the mean age of attendees down dramatically, didn't it?
Yeah.
I've been watching the entire time, trying to figure out when to arrive.
Someone wants to talk about McKinley when she gets home. She said no.
Oh, no. She'd love it, she'd crush it, and then she'd, crush it in the carpet.
Yeah. That's the choice of Hi, baby.
What are we going to do about the air conditioning in this joint?
Yeah, did you make a budget to get the air conditioning fixed in this building?
My wife warned
We
me.
freeze in the wintertime and we die in the summertime.
Mama. Yeah.
That's why Bittman wanted all that money put into the city coffers.
Oh, that would have been great
My
information.
wife told me on the way out, she says, it's going to be hotter than blazes in there. I'm just going to warn you.
And it is.
See, I have Troy
safe?
turn the air up
Ronald,
all the time.
you were on.
I'm eating my cookie now, so you got no.
Oh
I'm
my
just
gosh.
kidding. Hey, I've been waiting. All right, we'll call the redevelopment agency meeting to order for August 19th, 2020. On our business agenda, we have the first item is to consider an interlocal agreement between Cedar City Redevelopment Agency, Cedar City, Iron County School District, and the Iron County Water Conservancy District for the Deco Works project within the Coal Creek Community Redevelopment Reinvestment Project area.
Good evening again. Redevelopment Agency, Danny Stewart, Economic Development Director. The two agenda items that we have tonight, the first one that Ron read is concerning the interlocal agreement that we discussed in the City Council meeting. So the interlocal agreement is with the taxing entities, as you mentioned. In these types of agreements, the agency is the body that manages these things. And so the agency has the freedom to put together these agreements, and the interlocal or the taxing entities enter into that agreement with this group. So the first agenda item is just to enter into the agreement as the redevelopment agency with the taxing entities that we will collect and disperse those funds as agreed upon.
Any questions?
None.
Comments? Okay.
Well done.
We'll move that along. Okay.
Excellent.
Item number 2, consider participation agreement between the Cedar City Redevelopment Agency and Deco Works LLC for development of property located at 452 North Main Street.
Okay, so this is the other agreement. Once we've worked out details with the taxing entities, the other is between the agency and Decor Works. By statute, the affordable housing is just taken care of internally, but this one is the actual agreement with whoever is going to be receiving the incentive, which is Decor Works. So,
Does that contract, if it's entered into, does it follow new ownership? If Decor Works were to be sold in 3 years or 5 years, does that contract follow with the new ownership?
only if that new ownership continues the same operation that Decor Works was doing. So if someone were to move into that and change the usage, then it would not.
Okay.
So there's provisions for that. Different protections. It's a long agreement, but basically it does set up what they have to do and
it's
what
a very
we
long
do.
agreement.
It is. I've read it several times. So. But yeah, that's essentially what it is. And if you'd like to sit down, I can go through all the different points of that agreement and explain in cause of rental or any of those other things what the points of that agreement mean.
I trust
Happy to
you.
do that. It was built upon a template of like agreements, so that we've done in the county.
Okay.
Yeah, the Decor Works has been such a great community citizen, and I'm just excited to have this finally happen.
Yeah, and the way they've
fully
enhanced
supportive
and they've
of what
enhanced
they've
that
done.
part of our community.
Oh, yeah, that's.
They are.
Yeah, and that was the
Think
reason.
about what they did with the preparations needed to open businesses, right?
Right.
With signage and plexiglass.
Yeah.
When you see the valuation where that new increment comes from, it doesn't take into consideration also the amounts that they invested in infrastructure and those things that aren't counted as part of their property tax. So they went above and beyond that valuation that they're given for new tax increment to be able to get in there. In fact, the agreement states, and they did meet this part of the agreement, that they invested over $4 million into that project.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay, any further questions or comments? If not, we'll move this on. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I will second that motion. Oh, you got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's go.